Yang Kai's proposal of a duel in 3 months once again shocked everyone to the core. Eyes sparkling, Yang Hongli said, "Is this some kind of joke, Yang Kai?" He simply couldn't believe that Yang Kai's cultivation base could possibly catch up to his own. It seemed like a completely preposterous notion. Even if some consummate master came along and tried to impart his energy arts into Yang Kai, it still wouldn't be possible. Things were that easy, then people wouldn't need to actually practice cultivation to make progress. "No joke," Yang Kai replied with decisiveness that could sever nails and chop iron. "In the presence of all of these members of the older generation, we can both promise to compete in the hunt 3 months from now. Regardless of who wins or loses, we can at least have a good time of it. What do you say? Do you dare to accept?" Yang Hongli laughed uproariously in response. "Cousin, you really think too much of yourself. But since you want to come looking for trouble, how could I refuse you?" And thus, in the presence of all the members of the older generation, the two of them agreed to settle things in 3 months, during the autumn hunt. The Yang clan's autumn hunt was modeled after the sage ancestor dynasty's imperial hunts. All of the top experts in the clan would gather to hunt demons and devils, to practice martial arts, and to promote the overall strength of the clan. The truth was that in the rich, lush continent, martial prowess was the most important thing of all. All of the rich and powerful clans wanted to see whose cultivation base and energy arts were the most powerful. The strongest would become famous, would have much power and authority, as well as other benefits. Whenever it came time for the autumn hunt, the young ones in the clan would arrange for various competitions and contests to see who was the most outstanding of all. When Yang Zhan saw what was happening, he blinked, then transmitted a message to Yang Zhan using his energy arts. "Kir, are you sure about this?" Sending his response with his own energy arts, Yang Kai said, "Don't worry, father. I'm absolutely confident." Yang Zhan nodded and replied, "Very well. After this forum is over, you and I will have a chat to plan for the future. We also need to figure out how to save your 2 brothers. With that, he raked his gaze across the crowd and said, "Gentlemen, I invited you here today to talk about important clan matters. And now, we have a final answer to the 3 main questions. First, I, Yang Zhan, will provide the compensation for the latent dragon pill. Second, my son benefited greatly from his disaster, and his energy arts advanced significantly. Not only is he not a cripple, he has proven himself to be a genius. Do any of you dare to talk about punishing him now? Third, as far as the issue of who will serve as clan lord, we will wait for word to come down from the Council of Chief Elders." Even as the words left his mouth, the cry of an eagle could be heard from above. A moment later, a golden bird appeared, as large as a horse, bathed in radiant sunlight as it flew toward them. It almost looked like it was made from pure gold as it landed in the courtyard in a gust of wind. "The clan's golden eagle," a few people murmured. All of the experts of the older generation rose to their feet. After all, this golden eagle had a very extraordinary background, and was the mount used by the ancient chief elders. Powerful energy fluctuations rolled out as an old man dismounted. He had white hair and a long white beard, and appeared to be in his late 90s. "Great uncle," Yang Zhan said, saluting formally. This old man was Yang Zhaogong, and although he wasn't in the 9th phase, only the 8th with a cultivation base the same as Yang Zhan's, he represented the Council of Chief Elders, and was thus given the utmost respect. "I heard your son caused a big disaster," he said, "so I'm here on behalf of the Council of Chief Elders to address the issue." Patting his golden eagle, he looked at Yang Zhan, his eyebrows dancing up and down. "Yang Zhan, your cultivation base continues to advance spectacularly. In all likelihood, you'll reach the 9th phase within 8 to 10 years, whereupon you will be a true grandmaster of energy arts." "Great uncle, my son might have caused a big disaster, but he grew because of it, and even acquired great good fortune." When further explanation was provided, Yang Zhaogong was visibly shocked. He looked over at Yang Kai's defeated foes, Yang Feng and Yang Kui's, and then turned his attention to Yang Kai himself. Whoosh! Reaching out, he sent out a stream of blue true energy, which took the shape of a hand that grabbed at Yang Kai. Yang Kai didn't even have time to react. The hand instantly reached him, whereupon Yang Zhaogong's boundless energy arts entered his meridians. Yang Kai had no visible reaction. After all, he had already made sure that his strength of the hell-crushing god mammoths was well hidden, as deep as if they were in the pits of hell. And the lightning mammoth had vanished without a trace, making it impossible for Yang Zhaogong to see it. "Very tough body," Yang Zhaogong murmured. "Durable, drumming life force. Less like a human and more like a primeval beast." "Great uncle," Yang Zhan explained, "Kir was struck by lightning, and it made him like this." His meridians were actually refined by the process. In the end, Yang Zhaogong couldn't find any evidence to provide any other explanation. All he knew was that Yang Kai had spectacular potential. Even experts in the life-seizing level would find it difficult to escape with their lives after being struck by lightning like that. And he benefited from it. Simply miraculous. Releasing Yang Kai, Yang Zhaogong looked around at the crowd. Yang Zhan will continue to serve as the clan lord. The clan will be facing some tough times, so we all need to stick together. No infighting will be permitted. This is simply a matter of paying back some money. As long as we all remain standing in the end, we'll be able to make a comeback eventually. Young Zhen, take good care of your son. In the future, he'll be sure to serve the clan well. Yes sir, everyone said, bowing their heads. When the chief elders spoke, even top masters would have no choice but to rein in their ambitions. Everyone realized that Yang Kai was now a major force to be reckoned with. He had fought for the honor of his father, and only a father with a spectacular son could hope to hold on to the title of clan lord. Whoosh! Young Xiaogong leaped back up onto his golden eagle, then flew off into the air. He left just as quickly as he had arrived. And thus, the internal crisis within the clan was put to rest. As for Yang Shi, he let out a cold snort. I'll be taking my leave now. See you in 3 months at the autumn hunt. Flicking his sleeve, he led his subordinates away. One by one, the experts from the other subsidiary branches also took their leave. 2 hours later, the Yang clan mansion was quiet, and the only people left behind in the meeting hall were Yang Zhan, Yang Kai, his 2 poison brothers and the steward. Here, Yang Zhan said. I never could have imagined that your catastrophe would turn into a blessing. At this point, his eyes flickered with cold light. However, your brothers were hit with shadow blight. It seems to me someone was targeting me specifically in concert with the disaster you incited. We have to uncover the truth of who was behind it. You're right, Yang Kai replied. We have to get revenge, and we must also heal eldest brother and second brother. Kneeling down, he sent his powerful energy arts to work inside his brothers, and soon confirmed that the poison could not be driven away. As the energy and blood flowed through them, the poison joined it, becoming a part of the body itself and its metabolism. The shadow blight was almost like sweat that simply couldn't be removed from the body. Yang Kai's eldest brother sighed when he felt Yang Kai's true energy enter him. Third brother, your true energy is different from father's. It feels much more pleasant. Really? Yang Kai said surprised. Inside, he thought, I wonder if my strength of the hell-crushing god mammoths could be uniquely useful in combating the shadow blight. My true energy isn't particularly strong, so it's possible the effects are limited. But if I worked hard at cultivation. At this point, Yang Zhan said, Kier, there does seem to be something strange with your true energy. You've been tempered by lightning and have transformed in certain ways. Starting today, I'm going to teach you one of the most profound techniques of the Yang clan, the Invincible King's Fist. Since you swore an oath to defeat Young Hongli in 3 months, you need to make sure to follow through on your word to fight him. Invincible King's Fist. Yang Kai murmured, shaken. He had heard of this technique and knew it was one of the most powerful in the clan. In fact, it was a very nearly a royal class energy art. Energy arts were generally divided into classes, those being third class, second class, first class, royal class, imperial class, saintly class, heavenly class, and godly class. The Invincible King's Fist was a cultivation technique that existed right between the first class and royal class level. For the most part, a first-class energy art cultivation technique could support an aristocratic clan for hundreds of years, perhaps even thousands. Royal class energy arts were enough to found royal dynasties. As for imperial class, saintly class, and heavenly class energy arts, they were the things of legend. When it came to the godly class energy arts, as the name implied, they were the type that ordinary humans couldn't even cultivate. They were the techniques of spirits and gods. Yang Kai was fairly certain that his strength of the hell-crushing god mammoths was at the very least a heavenly class energy art, and he was even convinced that it might be godly class. After all, it was simply too profound. Each of the 840 million tiny particles within him had the power of an ancient mega mammoth, and when they combined would equal the power of a god mammoths. That was indeed the power of a god or spirit, something that surpassed humankind. If word leaked that a godly class energy art had appeared in the lands, it could lead to a major catastrophe, and therefore Yang Kai kept the truth hidden from his father. The more people who knew the truth, the more danger there would be. This was the type of thing that could lead to entire clans being exterminated. Yang Kai knew that before he told his father, he had to make sure that he was strong enough to protect the clan as a whole. After a moment of silence, the steward said, Lord, if you plan to pass on a technique to the third young master, then I'll go out to stand guard. Bowing, he left. Here, watch closely. This is the first dance of the Invincible King's Fist. It's called Triumph in Every Battle. Fiery streams of energy shot out of Yang Zhan. In the blink of an eye, the true energy behind him took the form of 6 long arms that resembled those of crabs or spiders. The powerful arms of true energy thrummed with muscle and power as they moved into a magical sealing mark. At the same time, Yang Zhan's aura surged. All in all, Yang Kai was left completely shocked by what he was seeing. The ultimate expression of the Invincible King's Fist is a 3-headed 6-armed image. At the moment, I can only summon the 6 arms. I haven't yet succeeded with the 3 heads. By the time I do, I'll be in the 9th phase, the Master of Energy level. Watch closely. There are 6 moves in total. Triumph in every battle. Victory in every fight. No stronghold too powerful. Defy all laws and principles. Eternally undefeated and all phenomena bend to the Master. The 6 arms behind him began to move in shocking fashion as he went through the forms, right there in the hall, unleashing attacks that even affected the gardens and lakes surrounding the area. At one point, the lake reacted as though it had been hit with a falling star, causing water to explode in all directions, filling the entire Yang clan mansion with mist. Such incredible power, Yang Kai murmured, his face pale from shock. Although this attack couldn't be considered world-rattling, it was enough to dry out a lake or topple a low-lying mountain. After revealing the might of the invincible king's fist, Yang Zhan looked a bit pale. Clearly, it was something he could only do once, not multiple times in a row. After finishing the demonstration, he explained all of the details of the technique to Yang Kai, including the hand gestures the arms made, the cultivation method, how to circulate his true energy properly, and the relevant details regarding his meridians. Only after confirming that Yang Kai was completely familiar with all of it did he finally move on to another topic. Time is very limited, Kier. You have to make use of every moment to train. I'll work on finding out who is targeting the Yang clan, and I'll also try to come up with a way to expel the poison from your brothers. At that point, he called the steward back in. Lord, what orders do you have? Bring out everything from the treasure storehouses. Do a complete inventory of all business endeavors, and then sell the businesses. Take everything over to the city magistrate's mansion and work to make sure the entire debt of the latent dragon pill is paid off. Upon hearing this, Yang Kai's face turned ashen, and he clenched his hands into fists. He was a member of the direct bloodline of the Yang clan, a bloodline that was incredibly wealthy, and now, he was responsible for losing the entire family fortune. Silk farms, medicinal ingredient shops, spirit stone stores, armories, jewels. It was all being handed over to the city magistrate's mansion to compensate for the latent dragon pill. Yang Kai was very well aware of what a latent dragon pill could do. It was a first-class medicinal pill that was supposedly refined from the blood of dragons. After consuming it, one's blood would gain traces of dragon power, which would increase both physical strength and lifespan. The city magistrate had originally possessed two. One of them he had used to break into the Master of Energy level, and the other he had kept locked up in a private chamber. Yang Kai had somehow bribed the guards to gain access to the chamber, stolen the pill, and then given it to Yun Halen. Of course, his attempt to win her over was a complete failure as she betrayed him. Just one of those medicinal pills was enough to clean out the entire direct bloodline of the Yang clan. Unfortunately, it wouldn't be long before servants, guards, and other members of the clan wouldn't have a way to get food. After all, the Yang clan mansion was staffed by well over 1,000 people. It's not a big deal, son, Yang Zhan said, clasping Yang Kai's shoulder. As long as we're alive, all of the money we lose can be earned back. Strength is the most important thing. We'll pay for that latent dragon pill, then figure out how to make the money back later. Yang Kai nodded and left, but the entire time, he was thinking one thing. I'm going to get that latent dragon pill back. About 10 streets down from the Yang clan, there was another sprawling complex with a huge sign above the main gate that read Chen Mansion. This was another of the rich and powerful clans in Yanhaven, the Chen clan. In the Chen clan's meeting hall, 4 clan lords were in the middle of a conference. They were the lords from the Wang, Chen, Liu, and Lai clans. Lord Chen wore a voluminous gown and had profound energy arts. Even as he sat there, he was surrounded by concentric rings of energy, which were the manifestation of his unique 3 rings energy art, a first-class technique. Lords, are you aware of the situation with the Yang clan? He said calmly. Of course, replied Lord Wang, tapping the arm of his chair. And I'm fairly certain of what the final outcome will be. The experts from the Yang clan's subsidiary branches will try to force Yang Zhan to abdicate. Did you see that golden eagle earlier? That means their council of chief elders already intervened to arbitrate. As for what exact decision was made, it's hard to say. The subsidiary clans already left Yanhaven, making it a bit hard to gather more information. The Yang clan is the highest ranked among all the aristocratic clans, and Yang Zhan's cultivation base is higher than ours. That much is without question. However, his 3rd son's martial arts have been crippled, and his 2 other sons were seen being carried in from outside of the city. Apparently, they were poisoned, and according to my informants, the Yang clan steward has been gathering inventory and selling businesses, and is in contact with the city magistrate's mansion. If the Yang clan compensates for what was stolen, I'm afraid they're going to be completely cleaned out. The Yang clan is clearly on the decline, said Lord Liu. Considering we all have various scores to settle with them, why don't we join forces and strike them while they're down? The only downside is that Yang Zhan isn't hurt. If he was hit with Shadow Blight too, it would have been perfect. Lord Chen chuckled in sinister fashion. He'll get poisoned sooner or later. In response to his words, the other clan lord shivered. Don't tell me. Yes, Lord Chen said. The Chen clan has formed an alliance with the House of Shadow Blight. Rising to his feet, he clapped his hands. In response, several masked, black, clothed figures appeared. From the coldness that surrounded them, it was obvious that they cultivated yin-based energy arts. This is the emissary from the House of Shadow Blight, Arhat Hyperblight. His energy arts and cultivation base have reached the peak of the 8th phase, giving him command of mind incarnation. He's on the very cusp of being in the Master of Energy level. The other clan lords exchanged glances and eventually rose awkwardly to their feet. Arhat Hyperblight chuckled in dark fashion, causing goosebumps to rise up on everyone present. There are a few reasons we have targeted the Young clan, he said. First is the mighty Young Jan. At some point in the past, he used an air mastery plant, which makes him the perfect vessel to create a flying Blightmaster puppet. Second is the mysterious martial technique of the Young clan, the invincible King's Fist. Third, and most importantly, is that the House of Shadowblight wants to get to Yang Suzu, who is Yang Zhan's adoptive sister, and who is also a disciple of the Demi-Immortal Institute. We can't get into the Demi-Immortal Institute, but if the Yang clan is put into danger, she will definitely come to their aid. After all, she has long since adopted the surname Yang for herself. With that, Arhat Hyperblight again chuckled in sinister fashion. This is turning into a struggle between two massively domineering sects. That was what all of the other clan lords were thinking as they exchanged vaguely awkward glances. In the rich flesh continent, there were many rich and powerful clans, but they generally existed on a lower level than the city magistrates, who in turn existed on a lower level than the enormous sects. Only the Sage Ancestor dynasty was powerful enough to rival the sects. Fellow lords, said Lord Chen, we're going to make sure that this time, the Young clan falls for all time. After we deal with Yang Zhan, the subsidiary branches will be much easier to handle. As for their Council of Chief Elders, the experts of the House of Shadowblight will take care of them. The Chen clan and the House of Shadowblight are going to provide many benefits to all of your clans. And now, let us begin discussing the particulars of how we will make our move. And thus, the conspiracy began to take shape. A few days had passed since the Yang clan forum. People in Yanhaven had taken note that the steward was clearing out the businesses and handing over the wealth of the clan to the city magistrate. Before long, everyone knew that the Yang clan's direct bloodline was going bankrupt. It was also public knowledge that Yang Kai was crippled, and his two brothers had been poisoned. Everyone was talking about how the Yang clan was on the decline. In the Yang clan mansion, many of the handmaidens, servants, and guards were getting very nervous. As for Yang Zhan, in addition to clearing out the clan's wealth, he also sent people to investigate the circumstances of his son's poisoning and to search for antidotal medicine. Yang Kai watched it all happening and was unable to help. All he could do was remain in seclusion practicing cultivation. Only if he could break into a higher level could he possibly help his clan and family. It was a clear night with a river of stars stretching overhead, glittering in mysterious fashion. Outside of Yanhaven, in a mountain range that few people visited, Yang Kai could be seen running at top speed as he went about training. Energy swirled around him as he tore through the air, causing rumbling sounds to echo around him. He was now capable of covering vast distances and travel, roughly 500 kilometers during the day and 400 at night. Furthermore, he was advancing in both physical strength and his energy arts. Over the past few days, it was on a daily basis that he would travel into the wild mountains a few hundred kilometers outside of Yanhaven. There, he would cultivate his strength of the hell-crushing god mammoths. After all, the aura of the awakening of a mega mammoth was so strong that any top experts who were nearby would notice it. After about 5 or 6 days of cultivation, his true energy was pulsing, seemingly on the verge of pushing toward a breakthrough. After running for a while, he reached a valley within the mountains. It was roughly bottle-gourd shaped and was very mysterious. There were no beasts, no snakes, no sounds of any kind, the reason being that the aura of the strength of the hell-crushing god mammoths was so fiendish that animals couldn't deal with it. Not even the fiercest of beasts would dare to move once they sensed it. This place will do, Yang Kai murmured. Planting his feet like those of a mammoth, and twisting his arms like one's trunks, he let out a shout that resonated through the valley, even causing minor rock slides. Hell-crushing god mammoths. Mega mammoth awaken. He pushed his energy arts to their limits, causing the lightning mammoth to send electricity coursing through him, filling all parts of his body. Crack! It was like the sound of a cocoon breaking open and a butterfly emerging. A majestic aura erupted from the top of his head, spreading out with wildness in all directions. Behind him, it was just possible to see 2 ancient mega mammoths, wild and filled with madness, ready to trample anything in their path. A second particle was now awake. Yang Kai now had the power of 2 ancient mega mammoths. Ancient mega mammoths were far removed from modern-day elephants. With an effortless tug of the trunk, they could uproot massive trees. They were about 3 to 4 times the size of elephants, with pelts of thick fur that were impervious to all sorts of weapons. Their skin was like copper, and their bones like iron, and some of them could even manipulate the vital energy of heaven and earth to produce energy arts similar to those created by humans. Because of all those things, they completely dominated all of the devilish beasts of ancient times. According to the legends, mega mammoths were actually descendants of the god mammoths. For a young man like Yang Kai to be able to unleash the power of 2 ancient mega mammoths was almost too terrifying to comprehend. Energy erupted from all of his pores, accompanied by a piercing sound like a steam whistle, or the buzz of countless bees. Yang Kai crossed his arms, causing the previously invisible true energy to begin to take visible shape. It collected in his palms, then poured out of his body and rapidly became corporeal. Within moments it had taken the shape of a chaotic, primeval spear. This was the 6th phase of energy arts, the energy weapon level. Take energy and form it into a weapon. The long spear pulsed with a hellish aura. Apparently its origin was the unique true energy flow provided by the strength of the hell-crushing god mammoths. Infernal deity spear. The sixth phase of energy arts was the energy weapon level, in which one's energy could be formed into a weapon. Such weapons were not randomly created. They were governed by complex rules and mechanics. They were made from different types of true energy, and then summoned through the various acupoints in the human body, in conformity with whatever energy arts were unique to that practitioner. If the weapons were randomly created, they would obviously not be very powerful, and would be easy to defeat in combat. As for Yang Kai's infernal deity spear, it was primitive in construction, and almost looked like it was made from stone. It pulsed with a hellish aura, and had a blood-red tip that would cause anyone who looked at it to feel as though their soul might be pulled into hell if they kept looking. With this spear in hand, Yang Kai felt like he was actually a god of hell. Infernal deity spear, he shouted, stabbing out with the spear. Instantly, the power of mega mammoths rose up within him, causing vortexes to spring up inside his body. These were not ordinary vortexes, but instead, hell vortexes. Once these vortexes sprang into action, explosive energy erupted out. With that, he threw the infernal deity spear, which streaked through the air, flying several hundred paces before stabbing into the side of a mountain. The mountain was like soft tofu to the spear, which emitted massive rumblings as it hewed out a massive cave so deep that it was difficult to see the end. Such might. This spear is so fast and powerful that if I used it to fight Yang Shi and his frigid ice energy art, I wouldn't have any trouble at all defeating him. And he's in the 8th phase. Yang Kai peered into the smoky cave that had been hewn out, and suddenly had a much better understanding of the might of the strength of the hell-crushing god mammoths. Whether it was the method of forming true energy, or the raw strength, it was definitely beyond the compare of other energy arts. Back when Yang Shi had used his frigid ice energy art to summon a blue spear, its might wasn't even close to the infernal deity spear. And he was in the 8th phase, while Yang Kai was merely in the 6th. Reaching down, Yang Kai picked up a stone of the ground, then drew on the hell vortexes to throw it. Instantly, it burst into flames and slammed into a nearby boulder, causing it to explode. Awesome. Normally, you have to cultivate to the peak of the 7th phase before you can pierce rocks and cause explosions. Just how strong is this energy art of mine? Unfortunately, I still have a lot of progress to make. I can't extend and retract my true energy, so I still had to personally throw that rock. In the 6th phase, one could form weapons, but couldn't control them from a distance. However, in the 7th phase, it was possible to extend true energy to wield weapons from a distance. As for retracting the true energy, that was very useful in combat because it could help conserve strength. As was to be expected, the 7th phase was roughly 10 times as powerful as the 6th in terms of battle prowess. In fact, that was the reason why Yang Hongli felt so confident in being able to lord it over Yang Kai. Technically speaking, Yang Kai's lower level of energy arts mastery meant that he shouldn't be a match for Yang Hongli. But now, thanks to the strength of the hell-crushing god mammoths, he was already confident that he could take on Yang Hongli. And that was especially true considering he had his infernal deity spear, which could move with such speed that no one could possibly evade it. This spear was not an ordinary weapon. When it was unleashed in an attack, screams like those from hell would echo out, as though millions upon millions of ghosts and devils were howling. Anyone who heard that would be shocked to the core, and would be unable to evade the attack, which in some ways was both mental and physical. The truth was that even if some other genius somehow acquired the strength of the hell-crushing god mammoths, that person wouldn't be able to form the infernal deity spear. The reason Yang Kai could was because of the lightning mammoth, the possible product of some powerful expert's cultivation and true energy. Speaking of which, Yang Kai was still curious as to why the golden imp in his forehead had remained completely unmoving up to this point. The quintessence it had left behind was empowering to a shocking degree, allowing Yang Kai to surpass ordinary people in many ways. As his true energy surged, Yang Kai felt more relaxed and comfortable than ever, and finally threw his head back and let loose a long cry. It had only been a few days, and he already reached the 6th phase, the energy weapon level. Such an accomplishment was the type rarely seen in the rich, lush continent. Invincible King's Fist, he shouted, unleashing the Quasi-Royal class martial technique as best he could. As his energy flowed, his fists became like mountains, moving with rapid speed this way and that. The air was ripped apart, and the dirt was cleaved as though by an axe. The infernal deity spear was something that he couldn't use lightly. If anyone saw it, it would surely lead to a major catastrophe. However, he could use the Invincible King's Fist any time he wanted, making the Quasi-Royal class something that could not be looked down on. In his recent days of cultivation, he had already practiced all of the stances and forms of his new fist technique until he had them down perfectly. Although he couldn't yet summon the 6-armed image of true energy like his father, he could still unleash attacks so explosive they could hew crevices into mountains. At this point, he could easily tear anyone in the 6th phase to shreds. Soon it was about midnight, and the valley was starting to get very cold. At that point, Yang Kai took a break from cultivation. Leaping up into the trees, he began to travel out of the mountains more nimble than a monkey. 7th phase experts could surpass this. They could flit along the tops of the trees themselves, and some could even use special methods to form true energy wings, thus making it possible to actually glide through the air. With those techniques, traveling 1,500 kilometers in a day wouldn't even be a problem. When it came to wings, if he cultivated the strength of the hell-crushing god mammoths all the way to the 7th phase, then he could form fiend, devil wings, which were far superior to true energy wings. Unfortunately, the Yang clan did not possess any technique that could be used to form wings out of true energy, which was a weakness of theirs. Such true energy wing techniques were considered very rare, and were usually tightly kept secrets in the organizations that possessed them. Yun Hailan, Song Haitian. You two betrayed me clean and simple, and I'm going to pay you back one of these days. Unfortunately, that time is not right now, but wait until my cultivation base gets stronger. Once I fully absorb that lightning mammoth, then I'll pay you back in like kind. Yang Kai knew that restoring his clan's honor and glory, helping his father, and saving his brothers were the most important things. But the greatest thorn in his side was still how Yun Hailan had betrayed him. If he didn't avenge that wrong, then he didn't deserve to be called a person. Before long, Yang Kai was out of the mountains and heading back toward Yan Haven. In the hundreds of kilometers surrounding the city were all sorts of garrisons, villages and towns, scattered about as numerous as the stars in the sky. They were connected by a complex web of roads, the biggest of which were wide enough for a dozen or so horse carts to travel abreast. Each and every road was paved with limestone slabs and were very well maintained. In the rich, lush continent, almost everyone could practice cultivation, even the common people. Therefore, creating fabulous buildings and roads was no difficulty for them. Of course, most ordinary citizens could only cultivate third-class energy arts, and most of them never progressed past the 4th phase, the energy refinement level. However, that was still no small feat. People in the 4th phase were still strong enough to carry 100 pounds while running at full speed. It was strong men such as they who repaired roads, built buildings, dug ditches, and quarried rocks for mountains. That was why the rich, lush continent was filled with amazing buildings, well-maintained roads, and other rich goods. It was for that very reason that the name of the continent itself had the word rich in it. Occasionally, a commoner would manage to hoard enough energy convergence pills to make a cultivation break through and enter the energy eruption level. Such people would immediately be recruited by the rich and powerful clans, or by the nobility, and would serve as special guards. As they became a part of whatever organization they joined, they would eventually gain access to higher-level energy arts. Suddenly, something caught Yang Kai's ear. What's that? Are there people fighting on the banks of the Yan River over there? Yan Haven was built next to the mist-covered Yan River, which was very convenient for many reasons. The river itself was dozens of kilometers wide, and both of its banks featured sprawling beaches filled with reedy patches of vegetation, boulders, and the like. The beautiful terrain features actually made those beaches the perfect location to remain concealed, and many high-level energy artists would make their home there. As Yang Kai was making his way past one such beaky area, he suddenly sensed energy fluctuations, and heard the sounds of fighting. Stopping in place, he looked ahead to find a young woman besieged by more than 10 black-garbed men. Letter FF4 2 letter FF4 5 letter FF4 4 letter 1 6 9 7 letter FF4 F letter 1 D 6 9 F letter 1 6 8 dot letter 1 D 6 letter 1 6 9 letter FF4 D. The black-garbed men were all experts in the 5th phase, the energy eruption level. One of them was particularly tall and impressive, and had an energy projection behind him that looked like a vicious ghost face. From the true energy fluctuations rolling off of him, it seemed that his energy arts were related to poison. He was obviously their leader, and the fact that he could form true energy into a ghost face indicated that he was a bit more advanced than Yang Kai, and was in the 7th phase, the energy manifestation level. Are those the energy arts of the House of Shadowblight? Yang Kai was quite a perceptive person, and almost immediately could sense that this ghost face energy art was somehow related to the poison his two brothers had been struck with. Possibly these black-garbed men were enemies bent on harming the Yang clan. As for the young woman they were fighting, she was clad in white garments and wielded a green sword. Every sweep of her weapon sent streams of sword energy out that would form into immortal cranes, which would then attack the ghost face. Whoosh! A rain of crossbow bolts suddenly erupted from the other black-garbed men, each of them as thick and long as a spear. Are those army felling crossbows? Yang Kai murmured, shocked. Army felling crossbows were particularly lethal, and could tear right through true energy, even when it was formed into a shield. For example, the energy shield that Yang Kui had summoned, although it could be said to be impervious to all sorts of weapons, would actually be useless against army felling crossbows. Within moments, the air was full of razor-sharp bolts, heading like a cloud of locusts toward the white-robed woman. The young woman already had her back to the river, leaving her no route of escape. Then, a huge pair of true energy wings suddenly sprouted out of her back, each of them fully 9 meters long. With a single beat of those wings, she launched high into the sky, looking almost like an immortal crane as she completely avoided the crossbow bolts. Is that what I think it is? Wings of the White Crane. That's a first-class energy art used by people from the city magistrate's mansion, isn't it? He's from the city magistrate's mansion. Shocked, young Kai began to run forward. Wings of the White Crane was a first-class energy art. It wasn't brutally violent like the invincible King's Fist, but it did provide marvelous abilities of flight. Although it couldn't enable the practitioner to fly to the highest heavens like an actual white crane, it did make heights of 100 meters attainable, and could be used to glide for a dozen or so kilometers. Thus it was an energy art that was no more or less incredible than the invincible King's Fist. Because of how it could be used to escape from enemies or travel long distances, it was incredibly useful. And in Yan Haven, the only people who could use this type of energy art were those from the city magistrate's mansion. The rich and powerful clans in Yan Haven had techniques that imparted vicious battle prowess, but none could fly like the people from the city magistrate's mansion. Even more specific than that, Wings of the White Crane was a secret technique that was only passed down through the bloodline of the city magistrate. As such, it was obvious who this white-robed woman was. After evading the crossbow bolts, she looked back down, then pointed her sword at the ground. As she poured true energy into the sword, it began to tremble as destructive power built up in it. Then, she shouted, "One sword to freeze 19 prefectures." Instantly, blinding sword light began to fall downward, covering the entire beach with sword projections. Mesh of heaven, net of earth. Destroy! Because of the immense power of the sword light, the granular sand on the beach was instantly transformed into powder. It only took a single glance for Yang Kai to realize that this sword was an outstanding divine weapon. Anything that could amplify one's energy arts in this way was definitely something very precious. After all, divine weapons like this could easily be used to gain the upper hand on an enemy. The leader of the black-garbed men obviously reached the same conclusion as Yang Kai. Throwing his arms out, he summoned what first appeared to be an elliptical canopy above them. As it took shape, it became clear that it was a huge bell, which took only a moment to cover him and his men. Golden Bell Rampart. The sword light slammed into the golden bell, causing flames to spark and giving birth to numerous sharp clanging sounds that rolled out across the waters of the river. Over 100 sword projections slammed into the bell and yet were unable to break through it. Soon, the white-robed woman was clearly running low on true energy, causing her wings to begin to fade. Clearly, they would vanish within moments. After all, not everybody could draw on their energy arts for such a long period of time as Yang Kai. "This is our chance," the leader of the black-garbed men said. Reversing the flow of his energy, he sent the bell flying upward, simultaneously transforming it into an enormous hammer. Boom! The hammer struck the white-robed woman, knocking her out of the air. As she slammed into the sand, blood sprayed out of her mouth, and her true energy shivered in instability. By this point, Yang Kai could see her face and was struck by her beauty. Slowly walking toward the fallen young woman, the leader of the black-garbed men said, "How'd you like that? Hurt? You just reached the 7th phase, the energy manifestation level. But you haven't stabilized your place there. I've been in the energy manifestation level for more than a decade. Do you really think that sword of yours could overcome me?" The young woman looked up at him. "I can't believe that the House of Shadowblight is here plotting against Yan Haven. Are you people tired of living or something?" The leader smiled viciously. To the House of Shadowblight, Yan Haven is nothing. We're going to annex one city after another, and eventually, overthrow the entire Sage Ancestor dynasty. Then we will be the imperial force that rules the rich lush continent. Considering that you have those wings of the White Crane, I guess it's safe to assume you're the daughter of City Magistrate Yan Gifeng. If I kidnap you, he'll definitely pay a handsome sum of energy convergence pills to get you back." Laughter erupted among the other black-garbed men. "Boss," one of them said, "why not let us have a bit of fun with her first? We could use some of our House of Shadowblight's love-making powder. Give her some of that, and instead of fighting to get away from us, she'll be fighting to get under us." More raucous laughter filled the air, crushing any and all hope the young woman had held of getting out of the situation. "Die!" she suddenly shouted, running her finger along the edge of her blade to send out a mass of sword light. As fast as lightning, it split into hundreds of separate streams that stabbed into the black-garbed man who had just spoken. As he screamed and flopped backward onto the ground, the other black-garbed men scattered, shocked that the young woman could unleash such a devastating attack. "Damn it," the leader growled, looking around at his men. Then he smiled and looked back at the young woman. "A very nasty little sword trick you have there. But now that you've used it, your true energy is in even worse of a state than before, so I don't have to worry about you fighting like a cornered beast. Think you can kill anyone else? Go ahead and try." In response to his challenge, a host of whooshing sounds filled the air, and then another of his subordinates was transformed into a bloody pincushion. Unable to even cry out in shock, he toppled down onto the sand. However, this time it wasn't just the black-garbed men who were shocked, it was also the young woman in white, as she had not unleashed the attack. Moments later, several blazing rocks shot through the air toward the leader. Rocks like this could easily pierce an iron shield, as they were propelled by Yang Kai's hell vortexes. Spiraling energy pellets, the leader growled. Eyes flashing, he drew upon his energy arts, sending a host of his own rocks flying out to intercept Yang Kai's. As they did, a string of booms filled the air. Utterly discomfited, the leader said, "Who's out there? Whoever dares to ambush me, you'd better step out into the open right now. It's me, Yang Kai said, strolling out of the reeds, his powerful aura surging with such terrifying strength that the leader of the black-garbed men immediately backed up a few paces. I can't believe you're actually trying to kill the daughter of the city magistrate right out in the open. You people really have some gall. Who are you little punk? The leader asked with a snarl. Do you really think you can kill my men without the House of Shadow Blight coming for revenge? Yang Kai laughed loudly. Revenge? If I kill you, how will they ever know? You've roamed the Zhonghu for years now. Haven't you heard of killing witnesses to prevent secrets from getting out? His words caused the young woman's anxiety to suddenly be replaced by inner laughter. I like this guy, she thought. At the same time, she pulled a pill box out of her garment, broke it open, and consumed the pill inside, hoping to restore some of her true energy. Kill me, the leader said. Apparently you don't know the meaning of the word death. He blurred into motion, like a serpent striking at its prey, and within a moment had already closed the several 100-meter distance between himself and Yang Kai. Watch out, the young woman called. They have powerful poison arts that. Before she could even finish her words, Yang Kai saw an enormous ghost face formed of true energy lunging toward him. It was a fearsome sight and something that couldn't be taken lightly. Invincible King's Fist, he shouted, drawing upon all of the true energy he could muster as he slipped into the 6 forms of the technique. Triumph in every battle, victory in every fight. It took only a brief moment for him to complete the forms, whereupon his true energy exploded out in a massive blast onto the ghost face. Instantly, the ghost face shattered into bits. Yang Kai could sense his true energy diminishing rapidly, but in the end, his energy arts were just too vigorous. The power of 2 ancient mega mammoths was enough to crush mountains, and therefore, after taking only one additional step forward, his true energy was back to full strength. Without hesitation, he launched another invincible King's Fist at the black-garbed leader. What energy arts do you cultivate, brat? The leader spat. He had just wasted a significant amount of true energy when fighting the white-robed woman, only to once again have it drained in an interchange. He's only in the 6th phase, he thought. How come it feels like he's drawing on the power of some primeval beast? Each of his moves is like some enormous animal trampling across the battlefield. Stabilizing his true energy, he prepared to unleash another killing move. However, before he could, Yang Kai's invincible King's Fist rocketed toward him again with devastating momentum. Golden Bell Rampart. The leader of the black-garbed men once again called on the same defensive energy art from before, summoning a huge golden bell. When Yang Kai's fist strike hit it, the invincible King's Fist collapsed. Let's see how many fists you can block, Yang Kai said, obviously not willing to give the man any breathing room. Using the strength of the hell-crushing god mammoths to back his invincible King's Fist, his hand was like a hammer smashing over and over again into the bell. In only a short breath of time, he drew upon his true energy to unleash over 100 fist strikes. Boom, boom, boom. Gonging sounds could be heard as the bell was struck, causing visible sound waves to roll out in all directions. As for the leader of the black-garbed men, he staggered backward over and over, blood beginning to ooze out of his mouth thanks to the damage to his internal organs. Pouring more energy into the golden bell, the leader said, "Listen, punk, you die." Yang Kai interrupted with a shout, unleashing a torrent of fist strikes that were like enormous axes that could cleave mountains. It was an impressive sight as he drew fully on his energy arts, his steel, like muscles bulging as he attacked with frightening tenacity. He went through the 6 forms of the invincible King's Fist in an endless cycle, pushing his momentum to the absolute peak, to the point where no one could see him. They could only see the massive waves of energy battering at the bell. He was like some sort of primeval, divine titan, smashing at mountains with an enormous sledgehammer. Is he even human? The white-robed woman thought, looking on with wide eyes. How could his energy arts have reached such an explosive level? At this point in the fight, the leader of the black-garbed men was in a very, very bad situation. He couldn't even fight back. All he could do was go all out to fuel his golden bell, aware that if it were to break, he would be reduced to a pile of blood and gore. It seemed to him that he wouldn't be safe from this kid even if he were locked up inside of an iron chamber. The brat was only in the 6th phase, and yet, seemed mightier than 10 6th phase experts all working together. "Listen, punk," he said angrily, "do you really think that?" "Shut the hell up," Yang Kai shouted, yet again interrupting. Meanwhile, he could now sense that the 3rd particle within him was beginning to awake. A cracking sound could be heard within him, and suddenly, the lightning mammoth stirred with excitement. Moments later, he had the power of 3 ancient mega mammoths at his disposal. Yet again his strength soared to epic heights. Boom! The golden bell shattered, and Yang Kai rushed forward with vicious abandon, charging across the battlefield like a mega mammoth. As he did, one fist after another slammed into the leader of the black-garbed men. The young woman looked on in shock as the man was thrown into the air. Blood sprang out of his eyes, ears, nose, and mouth, and his chest caved in. Then, he flopped onto the ground like a burlap sack. The leader of the black-garbed men had been virtually beaten into a pulp. After laying on the sand for a moment, he struggled to look up at Yang Kai and said, "Why, you're quite the expert, you punk. Who are you?" "Damn." Yang Kai's only response was to end his life with a final fist strike. Excellent striking technique, young lord, the young woman in white said. And excellent energy arts. Your cultivation base is in the 6th phase, and yet, you easily dispatched an expert in the 7th phase. Geniuses like you are rare to say the least. Many thanks for saving me. Young lord, may I ask to know your honored surname and distinguished given name? As for me, I am the daughter of Yan Haven City Magistrate, Yan Faxia. I'm young Kai. His first expectation was to see her face light up with shock upon hearing his name. After all, he was fairly famous in Yan Haven right now, and was said to be a useless, hedonistic silkprince who had brought ruin to his clan. However, it was to his surprise that Yan Faxia didn't react at all. Ah, a young master of the Young clan, she said coolly. Well, I must truly offer my thanks for your assistance tonight. Surprised by the reaction, young Kai said, Young Lady Yan, have you only just returned to Yan Haven? Indeed. I've been away working on my cultivation for about 10 years. This is my first time returning, and I couldn't have been more surprised to be ambushed by experts from the House of Shadowblight. In fact, I need to get back to the city right away to report the matter and try to get an explanation. Stepping forward, she began to examine the bodies of the black-garbed men. When she got to the mangled corpse of the leader, it was to young Kai's surprise that she reached into his garments and pulled out what appeared to be a tiny copper bell. It was covered with complex designs, and if one looked closely, it would be obvious that although it looked like copper, it was actually made of some other type of metal. I was wondering why his golden bell rampart was so strong. As it turns out, he had this little treasure, a bell made of refined gold from beyond the heavens, forged by a master of energy. This would serve to provide a significant boost to his energy arts, and obviously increased the strength of his golden bell rampart by several times. He examined the bell closely for a moment, as though to commit every aspect of it to memory, and then tossed it over to young Kai. You're giving it to me? Young Kai asked, surprised. Looking down at the complex designs that covered its surface, he noticed that there were also lines of extremely tiny text, which revealed the cultivation technique of the golden bell rampart itself. Surprisingly, it was a first-class energy art. It could be used to form a bell-shaped defense canopy made of true energy that would deflect all sorts of attacks. Even toxic energy would be useless against it. Well, it's your battle trophy after all, Yan Faxia said with a soft laugh. You did the hard work, so it's not my place to take all the spoils. That's a first-class cultivation technique, you know, so if you master it, it will advance your energy arts by a step or two. First-class energy arts are not easy to come by. If you sold that at auction, you would probably make a few 100,000 energy convergence pills. Few 100,000. Young Kai replied. He licked his lips. That's a fortune. It is. Things like that are worth a lot. At that point, Yan Faxia looked down at the leader and prodded him with her sword. He has some other treasures on him as well. It would be a big waste not to take them. Well, he's covered with poisons, young Kai said, and I don't have the ability to use telekinesis yet. Miss Yan, why don't you search him for treasure, then we can split what we find. That works, she replied straightforwardly. Waving her hand, she sent a stream of true energy out, which transformed into a lifelike hand that quickly descended to search the corpse. The process only took a moment and produced a snuff bottle, a few pieces of paper, and what appeared to be a leather-bound book. This snuff bottle contains an antidote that nullifies most poisons used by the House of Shadowblight. These papers are banknotes from the Sage Ancestor Dynasty, which can be exchanged for energy convergence pills. And this book, well, it's made from human flesh, and it contains the poison arts cultivated by the House of Shadowblight. Yan Faxia had clearly seen many things in her life, and was privy to many secrets that ordinary people would be unaware of. Young Kai couldn't help but marvel at what people from important clans and sects were capable of. Although young Kai himself was considered one of the young elites in Yan Haven, he was still like a frog in a well when compared to someone like this. Antidote, he murmured, eyes glittering. My eldest brother and second brother were both poisoned by Shadowblight, so that antidote would be very helpful. As for the banknotes, why don't we split them evenly? And then you keep the poison art manual? What do you say, Miss Yan? All right, she replied with no ceremony. Handing him half of the banknotes, she said, I don't really need the poison manual to be honest, but I can probably hand it into my sect in exchange for some rewards. Well, it's getting late and I need to get back home. Instead of inviting you over for a visit, I'll head over to the Yang clan in a few days to thank you properly. You're too kind, Yang Kai said. That having been said, Miss Yan, I'd prefer for you to not mention this incident to anyone. Just tell people that you handled the men from the House of Shadowblight. Oh, I understand, she replied. If word got out about this, it could be bad for the Yang clan. Waving her hand, she sent a stream of energy out that ignited the corpses of the ambushers. Within moments, they had all burned away into nothing but ash. An inferno energy art. Yang Kai's eyes widened. Miss Yan, I would never have been able to guess that, considering you used metal-type sword techniques before. You would also be a master of fire-type techniques. Can those two different types of energy arts really work well together? Normally speaking, people would cultivate a technique related to only one specific element. Mixing elements in cultivation could be very dangerous. Yan Feixia smiled coolly. It's a secret legacy technique from my sect that allows people to simultaneously cultivate two types of energy arts. She didn't seem inclined to offer any further explanation, which was entirely reasonable. Sects and organizations often had secrets that weren't intended to be spread. Although Yang Ke cultivated the energy arts of the Yang clan, after being crippled, he had begun to power them with the strength of the hell-crushing god mammoths. That new technique was as profound as the depths of hell, and had the ability to remain completely concealed. In any case, Yang Ke wasn't particularly interested in the Golden Bell Rampart. After all, if he could reach the 7th phase, the energy manifestation level, then the strength of the hell-crushing god mammoths would provide its own special defensive technique, the infernal deity Aegis, in combination with the fiend devil wings that would give him defensive capabilities that far surpass the Golden Bell Rampart. From that it could be seen that the strength of the hell-crushing god mammoths was one of those legendary techniques that was unrivaled in the world. In terms of the full manifestation of the infernal deity Aegis, it was a black spheroid of true energy. Eventually, in the Master of Energy level, it would become so strong that it would provide protection even in the depths of a volcano. That was a level of defense that almost surpassed that which was human. In fact, even the city magistrate of Yanhaven, who did have a Master of Energy cultivation base, as well as remarkable defensive techniques, would be transformed into ash if he jumped into a volcano. It seems that every advancement of my cultivation base and energy arts will lead to 100-fold improvements in strength. Yang Kai thought, his heart pulsing with anticipation. Can I really take them all the way to the 7th phase? Even having just stepped into the 6th phase, his fight with the Black Guard leader had caused a third particle to awaken within him, giving him the power of 3 ancient mega mammoths. I'll take my leave now, young Master Yang. In a few days, I'll come again to express my thanks. With that, Yan Feixia called upon her energy arts to once again summon a pair of white wings. Leaping up a few meters into the air, she flapped her wings and flew off into the starlight, looking very much like a spectacular white crane. Yang Kai looked down at his spoils. After looking over the banknotes, he realized that they were worth well over 100,000 energy convergence pills. That much wealth was equivalent to roughly 3 months of revenue for the Yang clan. Considering that his direct bloodline was now completely bankrupt, that many energy convergence pills would definitely be extremely helpful. And then there was the Golden Bell, and the technique that was written on it, which was also an extremely valuable treasure. That was also worth hundreds of thousands of energy convergence pills, and although it wouldn't alleviate the crisis, it would at least replenish the bloodline's losses to some degree. With that, Yang Kai sped off. When he reached the city walls, he scaled them as lively as a leopard. The only thing the city guards detected was a slight breeze caused by his passing. Back at the Yang clan mansion, he found his way to a certain private chamber, then knocked on the door. A moment later, Yang Zhan's resounding voice could be heard from inside. "Kier, are you back from your training? Come in." Then, the door to the chamber, which was roughly 1/3 of a meter thick, slowly opened. Yang Kai hurried inside to find his father and 2 brothers all sitting there cross-legged. His father had 2 hands outstretched, with a palm placed on each of his brothers' backs as he worked to drive the poison out of them. Unfortunately, from the complexion of his brothers' faces, it was obvious that the toxic energy was not easy to dispel. As soon as Yang Zhan saw Yang Kai, his gaze entered him like a burning fire. "Kier, your cultivation base has advanced again, hasn't it?" "Yes, father. I finally broke through into the energy weapon level. At this point, I should be able to defeat Yang Hongli without any problem." "Don't get cocky," his father replied seriously. "Yang Hongli is in the 7th phase, and you can't underestimate him. Generally speaking, 6th phase energy arts practitioners aren't capable of defeating the 7th phase ones." "I know, father," Yang Kai said, nodding. "Third brother," his eldest brother said, forcing a smile onto his face. "You really came out on top of your catastrophe. It's too bad I've been crippled. Father just can't get this damn toxic energy out of me." "Don't worry," Yang Zhan said. "Worst case scenario, I'll beg one of the 9th phase chief elders to help." Yang Kai's eldest brother shook his head. "Father, the chief elders are all running out of longevity, and have to focus all of their efforts on trying to seize life from the heavens. How could they possibly spare effort to focus on us when they're so worried about trying to extend their own lifespans?" The chief elders had already reached the point of avoiding all fighting for the purpose of conserving true energy, so obviously, they wouldn't waste it unless absolutely necessary. "There's no need to worry, eldest brother," Yang Kai said. Without further ado, he pulled the antidote out of his garment. "What's that?" Yang Zhan said, heart beginning to pound as he looked at the antidote. "Don't tell me it's really." Because of his advanced energy arts, his senses were particularly acute, and a single whiff of the aroma of the antidote was enough for him to confirm that it could treat his sons. "Where did you get that?" "It's definitely an antidote of some sort," Yang Kai said. "Whether it can cure eldest brother and second brother, I'm not sure. We'll just have to try it out. As for how I got it, it was from a 7th phase expert from the House of Shadowblight that I killed." He tossed the antidote to his father. "I also got some bank notes that should help the clan's financial situation." With that, he went on to offer a description of the fight with the men of the House of Shadowblight, and how he'd saved Yan Feixia. Great. Excellent. You've done a lot to alleviate the grudge between our bloodline and the city magistrate's mansion. I've heard of this Yan Feixia. She's Yan Dufeng's favorite daughter, and from the time she was young has trained at the True Dragon Institute. Now that she's back, she'll definitely have a very high standing in the Yan clan. As Yang Zhan spoke, he took the banknotes and copper bell that Yang Ke offered him, and continued to speak. Golden Bell Rampart is a first-class energy art. If an ordinary person got it and mastered it, he could found a new clan. Altogether, this is about 6 or 700,000 energy convergence pills worth of wealth. That's almost a year of profit for the Yang clan. This will definitely alleviate some of the crisis. Father, what about the antidote? Of course, that was what Yang Kai was most concerned about. Yang Zhan sent some energy into the snuff bottle, as well as some of the toxic energy he had extracted earlier. When he saw that the antidote completely dispelled the toxic energy, he said, "It can definitely help your brothers drive the toxic energy out." Whoosh! Not hesitating any further, he drew upon his energy arts to transform the antidote into 2 streams of smoke that pierced into his sons' bodies, causing them to tremble visibly. Upon seeing that, Yang Kai sent some of his true energy into his brothers, hoping to assist them in building back up their vital energy. After all, the serious nature of their poisoning meant that their vital energy had been severely damaged and reduced. Face covered with a look of shock, his eldest brother said, "Third brother, your energy arts are so powerful." Based on the level of his own energy arts, he could tell that his third brother's energy flowed through his meridians like a massive river. Although the energy it contained was not as pure and refined as their father's, it was the type that could cause virtually all living beings to bow in submission. A short time later, the toxic energy was completely removed, and his true energy was thrumming with vitality. Rising to his feet, he said, "Recovered at last." "Same here," the second brother said, similarly leaping up, his true energy surging. In fact, there was also a popping sound as his energy arts unexpectedly broke through into the 5th phase, the energy eruption level. "Third brother, thanks to you I just broke through. Getting struck by lightning was really a blessing in disguise for you. With energy arts like yours, you're a true blessing to our young clan." "Eldest brother, second brother, not only have you recovered, you've also made progress. In the future, no one will dare to underestimate the direct bloodline of the Yang clan. We might still be facing a financial crisis, but as long as we're alive, we can make a comeback." "That's right, third brother. From here on out, let's all work as hard as we can to help father get us back on track financially." The 3 brothers reached out with their right hands and clasped each other by the wrists, formalizing their resolve. Yang Zhan gazed at his sons with a broad, pleased smile. Regardless, after a moment, a serious expression once again took over his face. "Boys, I've uncovered the truth of who has been opposing us. The House of Shadowblight has formed an alliance with another of the aristocratic clans of Yanhaven, the Chen clan. In the past, they never had what it took to make a move against us, but they saw the incident with Kier as an opportunity to hatch a plot." Yang Kai's eldest brother, Yang Yunchong, said, "Father, there's something I've been wondering about. Our Yang clan is clearly the strongest clan in Yanhaven, and although it's common for there to be friction between the big clans, it doesn't seem to me that we've reached the point where open conflict is appropriate. Are they really not worried about us fighting back?" Yang Kai had also considered this issue. After a moment of thought, Yang Zhan said, "It's because of your aunt. It's been years since she joined the top organization in the rich, lush continent, the Demi-Immortal Institute. She has a good reputation there, and is considered to be a genius when it comes to energy arts. Because of how important the Institute views her, she's become a valuable target for certain parties. Of course they can't make a move on her in the Demi-Immortal Institute itself, and therefore they're targeting the clan. Obviously, they hope that she would be informed, and then rush back here to help, only to fall into their trap." "So that's what's going on," the 3 brothers all thought, their eyes flickering with understanding. Yang Kai suddenly thought back to the young girl he remembered, and how she would often feed him when he was a child. "If you don't eat your dinner, Yang Kai, I'm going to spank you." He could see her pigtail swaying back and forth as she blew on his soup spoon, worried that the hot liquid might burn him. "No, I don't want to eat dinner," he would pout, stomping his feet. "I want to play." Those were the type of memories he had of his aunt. Now 10 years had passed, and he didn't even know what she looked like or how advanced her cultivation base was. "So what do we do now, father?" asked the second brother, whose name was Yang Huolong. "We wait patiently and watch how the situation develops. In the meantime, we do our best to get the clan businesses back in operation. I'll leave that to the 2 of you. As for me, I'll focus fully on cultivation and trying to break through to the 9th phase. Here, you also focus on your cultivation, but take some time to go for a visit to the city magistrate's mansion. The fact that you saved Yan Feixia means that our relationship with them has changed." "Yes, sir," the 3 brothers shouted, their hearts brimming with excitement regarding the future of the clan. After a moment of silence, Yang Zhan could see Yang Kai's guilt written on his face, and said, "Don't blame yourself for what's happened, Kier. Although your reckless action of stealing that latent dragon pill led to a whole series of unfortunate events, some good also came of it. For one thing, we lured our enemies out of the shadows. Without that development, our clan, and your aunt as well, would have been in great danger and yet completely unaware of it. Alright, Yang Kai said, his negative feelings fading a bit. However, I'll never forget the fact that Princess Yun Halen of Yundel, tricked me into stealing that pill, thus leading our clan into great harm. One day I will definitely get revenge for that. In fact, I also suspect that Yun Hale and has it out for my aunt. That's probably why she targeted me to begin with, which would indicate that she's in league with the House of Shadowblight. Oh right, I forgot to mention that when I was beaten by Song Haitian, he said that Yun Halon was going to join the Demi-Immortal Institute. Yang Zhan was an experienced and insightful man, so after hearing this new information from Yang Kai said, that's a distinct possibility. If that's the case, then I'd say it's highly likely your aunt has an enemy within the Demi-Immortal Institute itself, plotting against her. Father, Yang Kai said, if you can advance your cultivation to the Master of Energy level, then couldn't you join the Demi-Immortal Institute as well and offer some support to aunt? Yang Zhan shook his head. Waving his hand dismissively, he said, in the rich lush continent, the Master of Energy level is so high that such individuals can command entire cities. Armies even. They are subjects of universal esteem, and some are even appointed as nobility by the sage ancestor dynasty. However, in the Demi-Immortal Institute, they aren't as special. The only way to be looked up to there is to break out of the energy arts level, and seize life from the heavens. Boys, you three catch up with each other. I'm going into seclusion to try to achieve my breakthrough. Farewell, father. Yang Zhan gave the bank notes and the copper bell to Yang Yunchong, and then the three brothers left. Yang Yunchong and Yang Hualong would be responsible for getting clan affairs back in order, leaving Yang Ke free to focus on cultivation. After all, he had only 3 months until the autumn hunt, which was his deadline to surpass Yang Hongli. Although the direct bloodline had experienced a financial catastrophe with the wealth Yang Kai had acquired, they were now at least capable of making a comeback. Late that night in the city magistrate's mansion, a middle-aged man sat in a certain room, a look of delight on his face. This man's energy surged even stronger than Yang Zhan's, and behind him was a burning sphere of energy from within which stepped numerous humanoid figures that almost looked like gods or spirits. This man was in the Master of Energy level, making him a Grand Master of Energy Arts. He could use humanoid true energy at will to create incarnations and clones, could attack with lightning, like speed, could track enemies by following their souls, and could fuse with heaven and earth. This man ruled all of the countless smaller cities and towns in the Yanhaven region, making him a leader to millions and millions of individuals. His name, Yan Qifeng. Just like the characters in his name, he really did look like a lonely mountain peak rising high into the azure sky, extraordinary in all aspects. When a voice echoed into his ears, an excited, fatherly smile broke out on his face. Daddy, I'm back. Is that you, Zaire? Drawing on his energy arts, he waved his hand, and the door to the chamber opened. Hurry inside and let me have a look at you. You've been gone for 10 years. How has your cultivation progressed at the True Dragon Institute? Yan Feixia hurried in, dropped to her knees before her father, and kowtowed respectfully. Father, it's so good to see that you're in good health. There's no need for all that bowing. All of a sudden, a flash of anger appeared on Yang Dufeng's face. What's wrong? Have you been in a fight recently? Were you accosted on the way here? Rising to her feet, Yan Feixia said, Yes, father. I was ambushed by people from the House of Shadowblight. They set up a trap by the Yan River. With that, she offered a few more details. A cracking sound could be heard as the crystal goblet Yan Dufeng had been holding shattered into dust. How dare the House of Shadowblight attempt to harm my daughter? And what gall they have to operate within the vicinity of Yanhaven? Do they really think the Yan clan is powerless to retaliate? Father, the House of Shadowblight is a huge organization, and they operate in the shadows. They're one of the most powerful poison sects in the West. You can't underestimate them, father, nor do anything rash. I'll report this matter to the True Dragon Institute after I return. By the way, father, I had help dealing with the men of the House of Shadowblight, a friend who casually slaughtered all of their experts. Looking surprised, Yan Qifeng said, You had help? Who was it? Thankfully some noble and qualified young hero was around to kill the villains from the House of Shadowblight. Yan Qifeng said, Who was he? Do I know him? I definitely need to offer my profound thanks to whoever he is. Which clan did he come from? Or was he someone from the senior generation? I believe you do know him, father. He's a prodigy from the young clan. Despite being only in the 6th phase of energy arts, he's by no means inferior to experts in the 7th phase. If he were a member of the True Dragon Institute, he would be considered a top-rate genius. Yan Feixia had nothing but praise for Yang Kai. After all, she had personally witnessed his grand performance. Not only had he vanquished the Golden Bell Rampart, he had easily dispatched the leader of the black-garbed men. As such, she had a glowing impression of him. In fact, never before had she encountered someone like him among her peers. Yang Kai hadn't even practiced cultivation to the peak of his current level, and yet possessed the power to cow countless devils and gods. In response to his daughter's words, Yan Dufeng's expression flickered. A prodigy from the Yang clan? Who exactly? Young Kai, she replied. His face fell, and he nearly lost control over his energy arts. What? Young Kai? Are you sure it was him? Impossible. His energy arts were crippled by Luo Han, and then he was struck by lightning. How could he possibly have been the one to help you? I hadn't heard about that, said Yan Feixia, clearly surprised. Father, why did Luo Han cripple his energy arts? Yan Gufeng let out a cold snort, and his eyes flashed with killing intent. That little punk stole my latent dragon pill. As you know, it was years ago that I traveled far and wide in my quest to acquire the 2 latent dragon pills that were all that remained of the legacy of Taoist Master Latent Dragon. By consuming one of the pills, I was able to reach the Master of Energy level. I'd planned to give the other one to you, and was merely waiting for you to return to visit. It would definitely have boosted both your energy arts and your place in the True Dragon Institute. But then that brat came along and stole it. I was so angry I wanted to just kill him. The only reason I didn't was because of Yang Suzu and her place at the Demi-Immortal Institute. Father, I only just met Yang Kai, but he seemed like quite the heroic individual. Why would he steal your latent dragon pill? Could it all have been some misunderstanding? Besides, didn't you keep the latent dragon pill guarded in a secret chamber? How could he even have stolen it to begin with? Someone in the know gave him information about the chamber itself. Yan Gufeng said angrily, and he used a host of other methods to get inside. I investigated things later on, and as it turns out, that siren Yan Heilan from Yundel, she seduced him. When she realized that the city magistrate's mansion had a lot of dealings with the Yang clan, she pulled him into her scheme. In the end, the little punk just turned out to be a complete and utter fool. Yan Feixia frowned. But how could his energy arts have recovered? And how did he end up being so powerful? After a moment of silence, Yan Gufeng waved his arm to send a blast of energy out of his chamber, which caused quite the stir within the mansion, and said, "Men, enter." Moments later, numerous figures came hurrying in, all of them wearing fancy, embroidered garments. Dropping to their knees, they joined their voices together to offer greetings. "Our respects, Lord Miss." Considering that Yan Gufeng presided over armies of followers, it was easy for him to summon top masters to do work like this. Supposedly that brat from the Yang clan got his energy arts back. Go investigate the matter immediately. The masters all kowtowed and then vanished. About an hour later, they returned and assembled outside of his chamber. However, the one to actually enter and report was the hulking brute of a man, Luo Han. Dropping to his knees, he said, "City magistrate, it seems that the young miss heard correctly. That punk Yang Kai actually benefited from being struck by lightning. I'm not sure what exactly changed or transformed about him, but I confirmed that his true energy is stronger than ever. Despite only being in the 5th phase, he made a big splash at the Yang clan forum, and actually defeated Yang Kui of the senior generation, who's in the 6th phase. He performed so outstandingly that even one of their chief elders praised him." Yan Gufeng was indeed a powerful person, with deep access to intelligence resources. Many of the rich and powerful clans in the city had no idea what had occurred in the Yang clan forum, and yet, in one short hour, his men uncovered all of the details. Struck by lightning? Experienced some transformation? How did that kid get so lucky? A thoughtful expression could be seen on Yan Gufeng's face as he pondered the situation. He broke through from the 4th phase into the 5th, and is now all the way into the 6th. Daughter, are you sure his energy arts are in the 6th phase? Absolutely. Otherwise, how could he have defeated an expert from the House of Shadowblight who is in the 7th? With that, Yan Feixia went on to provide a detailed recounting of the fight. Yan Gufeng listened with increasing shock. You're telling me that Yang Kai, who is only in the 6th phase, actually defeated an expert in the 7th phase, who was using the Golden Bell Rampart, and his opponent was boosting his own energy arts with a magical item? This is extraordinary. Considering how advanced his cultivation base was, he was very familiar with the differences between various cultivation levels. Fundamentally speaking, it was almost impossible for someone in the 6th phase to fight someone in the 7th. Only the most spectacular of geniuses could do something like that. And that was without even taking into consideration that the enemy had been using the Golden Bell Rampart. That made things even more astounding. What secrets does this kid have? Yan Gufeng thought. Can't be as simple as having been struck by lightning. When Yan Feixia saw how angry her father looked, she couldn't help but say, "Father, it doesn't really matter. He saved my life, and I'll never be able to forget that. He was tricked into stealing the latent dragon pill, wasn't he? And didn't the Yang clan provide compensation already?" "Fine," Yan Gufeng said, his tone softer than before. "I won't look into the matter any further. Originally I was going to make sure the Yang clan was wiped out from Yan Haven, but now..." "Luo Han." "Sir?" Luo Han said. "What orders do you have?" "Carry out another investigation, this time into the House of Shadowblight. Find out how strong they are, and what exactly they want in this area. What gave them the guts to come to Yan Haven and threaten my daughter? Daughter, spend the next few days in rest. Go see your brothers and sisters, and give them some tips regarding the energy arts of the True Dragon Institute. If any of them qualify, perhaps you could take them back with you to study." The True Dragon Institute was one of the largest institutions in the rich, lush continent. Although they hadn't been around as long as the Demi-Immortal Institute, they were at least comparable. Most people considered them to be in the top 5, placing them far beyond the House of Shadowblight in terms of power. Very well, Father Yen Feixia said. After all, she had wasted a lot of true energy in her fight with the black-garbed men and was feeling particularly exhausted. After his daughter left, Yan Gufeng sat back down in his throne and thought about the situation for a bit more. Eventually, a smile touched his lips. So, a new freak has appeared in the Yang clan. That brat actually benefited from his catastrophe and experienced a body tempering because of the lightning strike. I've heard of things like this happening before. The Yang clan has always been a big threat. If this kid continues to advance like this, then within 10 years, we'll have another master of energy to worry about. And Yang Zhan is already on the verge of reaching it as well. Pretty soon my position as city magistrate will be difficult to defend. It's not uncommon for the aristocratic clans to rise up in rebellion, kill the city magistrate, and take over the city. The cities in the rich lush continent were mostly self-governing and were like city-states. Although they offered tribute to the sage ancestor dynasty, that was where the relationship ended. As for the aristocratic clans within the cities, they were like vassals underneath the city magistrate's mansion, and many of them were more than happy to revolt and kill the person they served. In fact, such events were so common that virtually all city magistrates had to be on guard against the possibility. Most of the time, the sage ancestor dynasty wouldn't pay any attention to such things, as long as their yearly tributes always came in. Besides, the sage ancestor dynasty was on the decline, ensuring that the hundreds upon hundreds of nations in the rich lush continent were always at odds. The number of groups who could be considered rebellious were too many to count. Case in point, the numerous locations in the hundreds of kilometers surrounding Yanhaven that the Yan clan controlled. Such places had a different name for the area they lived in. They called it the state of Yan. And in the grand scheme of things, Yanhaven was only a third-rate city, albeit within the top of that group. That having been said, considering the wealth they had access to, it was possible that they could gain even more honor and glory. Slapping his hand on the table, Yan Gufeng said, Luo Han, spread word that in half a month, I want to invite all of the elite young ones from Yanhaven to a banquet. Make sure it's common knowledge that my daughter Yan Feixia has returned from the True Dragon Institute for a visit, and that this is a welcoming feast. And if my daughter takes a liking to any of those who attend, I could very well pick him as a son-in-law. Luo Han understood immediately. Excellent idea, city magistrate. First of all, this will give us a good idea of what aristocratic clans have been up to lately, and what level their top disciples have reached. Second, if we can use the other clans to kill Yang Kai and sow discord among them, then it will serve to consolidate your power. That's right, Luo Han, Yan Gufeng said coldly. You're as clever as always. Also keep your eyes on Yang Zhan. He's always been a talented individual, and I know he used an air mastery plant in the past. If he reaches the Master of Energy level, he'll be a major threat to the Yan clan. Furthermore, we need to consolidate power over all the clans in Yanhaven. If we do that, and also get the support of the True Dragon Institute, then we really can proclaim ourselves the state of Yan. Luo Han shivered. Proclaim ourselves the state of Yan? You mean declare independence from the Sage Ancestor Dynasty? Exactly. If Yanhaven can become an independent nation, and then begins to absorb other cities, we will only continue to grow stronger and stronger. In the years to come, it would not be entirely impossible to unite the entire rich lush continent under our banner. I've already reached the peak of the Master of Energy level. If the right good fortune comes along and I break into the life-seizing level, then I'll increase my longevity. I could theoretically rule for hundreds of years, perhaps thousands. That has been the dream of all the leaders of the Yan clan, going all the way back to our founding ancestor. Much of this will depend on your help, Luo Han. Yes sir, Luo Han said, ducking his head in deference. Never could Luo Han have imagined that the city magistrate he served would have such high ambitions. His dream actually stretched 1,000 years into the future, and involved unifying the rich lush continent under his own rulership. It was especially surprising considering that Yanhaven only counted as a small city in the sprawling continent. Although it held sway over a population of millions, there were other cities whose citizens numbered in the tens of millions, and there were even some with populations over 100 million. Therefore, Yanhaven was nothing special, and if it declared itself a nation, could easily be wiped out by other, more powerful forces. Considering that, it almost didn't seem worth mentioning the possibility of seizing rulership of the entire continent. The thousands of cities in the rich lush continent were essentially independent vassals, and unifying them would be a very, very difficult task. Not even experts in the life-seizing level would think about trying to do so. After all, the Sage Ancestor Dynasty had as many powerful experts working for them as the sky had clouds, and not even they had ever tried to create a centralized state power. Although they did have an emperor who ruled at the highest tier of the feudal government, the truth was that he was really just another city magistrate. All that the imperial dynasty could do was preside over a loose collection of vassal states. That having been said, if Yan Gufeng could actually reach the life-seizing level, gain the support of the True Dragon Institute, then slowly but surely conquer and absorb the other powers surrounding Yanhaven, such as Beishiville, Yundale, Bai, Si, Jialu, Fourth, and so on, then he could theoretically become a second-tier power. Although that wouldn't be the same as fulfilling his thousand-year dream, it would definitely be incredibly glorious. Much of his plan had to do with the True Dragon Institute, which was an exceedingly powerful organization. In the rich lush continent, the first-tier powers were referred to as institutes. Beneath them were various sects, factions, religions and so forth, which were second-tier powers. Such second-tier organizations often had impressive names, but were far below the first-tier powers in terms of overall strength. Without deep reserve powers, and a host of powerful experts to establish and propagate civilization and culture, an organization couldn't be referred to as an institute. The word institute itself contained profound meaning, and was in fact holy in nature. All other organizations, whether they were called sects, parties, factions, religions, associations, or even dynasties, were often powerful, but in some ways could be considered unorthodox. None of them were holy and orthodox like the institutes were. The Demi-Immortal Institute, the True Dragon Institute, and a handful of other institutes were like shining beacons of light in the rich lush continent, organizations that everyone looked up to as being holy lands of sorts. Compared to them, Yanhaven was like an ant. Luo Hun's blood was surging at the thoughts which had just been awakened within him. I definitely must live up to my own skill and abilities. If I do, perhaps I could be a part of a new royal dynasty, and establish a reputation that will be remembered for countless years to come. Are the kings and nobles really innately superior to people like me? I've heard rumors that there are already other cities that are calling themselves nations. If that's true, then why can't Yanhaven be called the state of Yan? At the Yang clan mansion, Yang Kai was very pleased with how his cultivation had progressed over the past several days. During the day, he would spend his time in seclusion, and at night he would head into the mountains outside the city, where he would practice his martial arts. His internal energy was growing more powerful every day, and he was gaining a deeper understanding of the strength of the hell-crushing god mammoths. From what he could tell, he was getting closer and closer to waking up the fourth particle inside him. When that happened, he would have the power of 4 mega mammoths, and would definitely be superior to someone in the 7th phase. In fact, his energy arts were already reaching the point of breaking into the 7th phase. It only took about 3 days for news to spread through the Yang clan mansion that Yang Yunchang and Yang Hualong had recovered. The 2 elder brothers had already begun to put the clan's business back in order, and even better, they managed to sell the copper bell on the gray market for 500,000 energy convergence pills. The Yang clan's direct bloodline was beginning to make its comeback already. The clan was no longer listless and weakening. Instead, it was thrumming with activity because of the endless possibilities for the future that had been opened up. Yang Kai's second brother, Yang Hualong, had broken through to the 5th phase, the energy eruption level. All the guards and servants were shocked, and were finally filled with a bit of hope for the future. Exhale. Inhale. Yang Kai was sitting just outside the corridor of his private quarters, looking out at his pond as he performed breathing exercises. Every time he exhaled, the waters of the pond would part. And when he inhaled, the surface of the pond would swirl up into the air like a tornado, and then splash down again like rain. Clearly, Yang Kai's energy art cultivation had reached an incredibly high level. Because of the strength of the hell-crushing god mammoths, they resembled the way a mammoth could suck water up into its trunk. According to the legends, when god mammoths raised their trunks up to the sky and inhaled, they could pull the stars down from the sky. After all, mammoths were the perfect representation of limitless power. As he breathed, the power of the lightning mammoth in his Danshan region continued to flow through his meridians before returning to a sea of energy. During the journey, bits of the lightning mammoth's quintessence would be absorbed into him, making him tougher and physically stronger. With his eyes closed, he could sense that there was something like a membrane beneath his skin, transparent and crystalline, and 10 times more powerful and durable than his actual skin. It was like the skin of a mega mammoth, so tough that blades couldn't pierce it. Even energy art attacks that hit him would have difficulty piercing through that membrane. Streaming across the surface of the membrane were magical symbols that were clearly not the product of human hands. They were like the writing of devils or gods, wriggling and squirming in a way that made it impossible to deduce their meaning. With that membrane in place, Yang Kai's physical body was more flexible, agile, and tough than before to a level that was hard to even calculate. Without even using energy arts, he could run as quickly as a leopard, strike with force that surpassed a bear, leap as nimbly as a monkey, and flit about as effortlessly as a bird. At this point, he was so terrifyingly powerful that not even his father or Yangshi, experts in the 8th phase, would be able to contend with him in terms of physical strength. Third brother. When Yang Kai heard one of his brothers calling out to him, he slowly reined in all of his energy arts and rose to his feet. Even as the surface of the pond went calm, his second brother Yang Hualong hurried in. Big news, third brother. In 12 days, the city magistrate's mansion is holding a banquet, and all of the unmarried young elites 30 years of age or under from the top clans are invited. That includes you, third brother. From what I heard, Yan Feixia is back from the True Dragon Institute to visit her parents, and the city magistrate is throwing this banquet to try to find a young genius to be her husband. Luckily for you, you saved Miss Yan Feixia back by the river, so she must have a good impression of you. Considering all the progress you've made, if you can butter her up a bit more before the banquet, maybe you'll end up as the future son-in-law of the city magistrate. Really? A banquet? Yang Kai took the invitation card from Yang Hualong and looked down at it with a bit of a frown. I just stole a latent dragon pill, and very nearly lost all of my energy arts, and now the city magistrate is inviting me to a banquet? Maybe I did save his daughter, but he's a wily old fox through and through. There must be more to the story. The safest thing would be to skip it, but of course that would be pretty insulting to him. You're right, third brother. As you know, the Yang clan used to be the richest and most powerful clan in all of Yan Haven. Eventually, we were surpassed by the Yan clan, which has pushed Yan Haven to the point of being able to call it the state of Yan. The Yan clan is the lord, and the rest of the clans are the government officials. However, if the officials all join forces, they can kill the lord. Once our Yang clan gets strong enough again, the Yan clan will definitely fear us. Yang Hualong was no simpleton either. He had a lot of experience in life, and always analyzed matters in a thorough and logical way. That's true, Yang Kai said, putting the invitation card away. I guess I'll just have to play things by ear. Yang Kai's eldest brother, Yang Yunchong, was already married, and even had children. Therefore, he didn't get an invitation. And Yang Hualong was engaged, so he naturally wouldn't attend either. The only one to be going would be Yang Kai. There's another bit of news I need to tell you, third brother, Yang Hualong said. 3 days ago, word came in from Yundel by the sea. The city magistrate there made an official proclamation announcing the founding of the state of Yan. It won't be long before they start swallowing up the other powers around them. Oh, I heard another rumor as well. Supposedly Yan Hailan and Song Haitian were both accepted into the Demi-Immortal Institute. That will also bolster the power of the state of Yan. Each piece of news that Yang Hualong revealed was like a bolt of lightning. What? Yang Kai said, shocked. They founded a new nation? They've definitely got some guts. Don't tell me they're going to renounce allegiance to the Sage Ancestor dynasty? You probably haven't heard about this, third brother, but the truth is that there are many powers throughout the rich Lesh continent who are declaring themselves to be sovereign nations. Although they still pay lip service to being vassals of the Sage Ancestor dynasty, and continue to offer tribute, the dynasty is only growing weaker and weaker, and the Sage Ancestor dynasty can't really do anything about it. Who knows? Maybe one day Yan Haven will become the state of Yan. The glimmer of sabers and swords can be seen everywhere, and the dragons and snakes are beginning to struggle with each other. Kings are rising up. Which of them wouldn't want to unite the continent and establish a 1,000-year legacy? Among the emperors and his vassals, not a single benevolent individual can be found. Yang Kai had grown up quite a bit, and to be discussing matters of politics and war with his brother made him feel like one of the heroes of old. All the powers under heaven are experiencing drastic transformations. It's going to be difficult for the Yang clan to pick the correct course. Considering the continent as a whole, we're like country bumpkins. Rich country bumpkins, but still country bumpkins. If any of the big powers really wanted to wipe us out, they could do so as easily as stomping on a chicken egg. Yang Hualong sighed deeply. Power is the foundation of everything. Speaking of which, I really need to improve my own cultivation. 12 days. Yang Kai said, I have 12 days to get a lot stronger. I think I need to come out of seclusion and go do some real world training. Take care, second brother. Make sure to keep the clan in order while I'm gone. With that, Yang Kai blurred into motion. So fast. Yang Hualong said, startled. How did you get so strong so quickly? And where are you going? To the Black Corpse Mountains, Yang Kai said, to hunt some demonlings and devillings. With that he vanished without a trace. What? The Black Corpse Mountains? That place is very dangerous. We don't even venture very far into those mountains during our autumn hunt. And you're going in alone. Yang Hualong shook his head. The Black Corpse Mountains was where the Yan River started, and was a very inhospitable environment. They were filled with bizarre demonlings and devillings that had existed there since primeval times. Many such creatures had innate energy arts, and could do things like shoot fire, breathe smoke, or freeze things around them. And many of them operated in packs. However, their pelts were extremely valuable, and thus experts would often hunt them. In fact, the Yang clan's autumn hunt was a big way the clan made money. However, people usually entered the mountains in teams, not alone. The dangers simply outweighed the potential profits to a huge degree. The next day, it was noon, and the sun blazed overhead. The buzz of cicadas and other animals somehow made the heat even more oppressive. The mighty Yan River flowed out from these mountains, which were pitch black and profound to the extreme. All of the sinister-looking mountain peaks were covered with enormous, black trees, making it impossible to see the sun from down below. The roars of the beasts which occasionally echoed out were enough to strike terror into the hearts of any humans who heard them. Despite the heat, a sinister wind swept through the mountains, wailing in a way that would cause goosebumps to prickle the necks of anyone it touched. At the actual source of the Yan River, it was possible to see aquatic monsters lurking within the surging water, their scales glittering and claws flashing. A fiendish aura filled the area, making it obvious that danger lurked everywhere, the type that could bring death even to those who cultivated profound energy arts. At the moment, Yang Kai stood at the entrance of the Black Corpse Mountains, marveling at the danger he sensed. So these are the Black Corpse Mountains. His first impression was that they were incredible and clearly the work of ghosts or gods. The mountains were more than 1,000 kilometers away from Yan Haven, and the road between them was fraught with inhospitable territory and other dangers that normally meant the journey would take half a month. But with Yang Kai's incredible cultivation base and energy arts, he could make the journey in about a day. Sitting down cross-legged, he rested for a bit before pulling a bag out of the fold of his garment that was filled with energy convergence pills. They were sparkling and translucent, with an emerald green surface and medicinal energy swirling inside. Energy convergence pills had been invented ages ago by a holy expert. Originally, they were simply intended to strengthen the body, improve the meridians and solidify longevity. Eating one such pill would make a person so full they wouldn't need to eat for an entire day. In terms of the ingredients, they varied and contained everything from the quintessence of the sun and moon to the spirit energy of heaven and earth. Eventually they became a form of currency, replacing the previous system of gold and silver. They could be used to purchase all sorts of things, from weapons to armor, from silk to servants. They also had another common function. When going into remote areas to practice cultivation, such as Yang Kai was doing in the Black Corpse Mountains, they made it unnecessary to bring bulky food rations. After consuming a few energy convergence pills, Yang Kai circulated his energy. Cracking sounds erupted from his muscles, tendons, bones, and joints as the energy swirled into the area around him, flattening nearby plants and vegetation. I have 10 days until I have to go to that banquet. I wonder if Yang Yufeng really plans to make a move on me. Regardless, I have to promote the glory of the clan. And I have to be ready to fight Yan Heilan and Song Haitian one day, to cleanse myself of the humiliation they caused me. 10 days. I have 10 days to break into the 7th phase of energy arts. Whoosh! Without any further hesitation, he activated his defensive energy arts and leaped into the trees, quickly becoming a blur that headed deep into the mountains. His hope was to get to the energy manifestation level as quickly as possible, which would increase his battle prowess by another tenfold. He would also be able to use energy to form corporeal objects, thus giving him access to energy arts such as the Fiend, Devil Wings, and the infernal deity Aegis. At that point, even people in the 8th phase would have trouble dealing with him. Once he had his Fiend, Devil Wings, he would be able to glide through the air as though he were flying, which would make it much more difficult for enemies to fight him. That much was evident from what he had seen of Yan Feixia and her wings of the white crane, which had enabled her to easily dodge out of the way of the crossbow bolts the enemy had loosed. And his Fiend, Devil Wings, would definitely make him far more agile than the wings of the white crane would. Because of how vastly extraordinary the strength of the hell-crushing god mammoths was, not even Yang Kai was exactly sure of how powerful he would be. And if he added the infernal deity Aegis into the mix to defend himself, it would make him almost impossible to beat. That was not even mentioning the fact that when he reached the energy manifestation level, he would also be capable of telekinesis and other feats. At that point, every inch of his body would be like a weapon, which would make his fighting style much more diverse and varied. The deep forest was densely packed with towering trees, most of them dozens of meters tall. As for the forest floor, it was covered by a mat of fallen leaves, and as Yonki got deeper and deeper in, he could sense the auras of powerful devilings lurking about. Even if he was able to move along on the treetops, he wouldn't be safe. After traveling for a bit, he stopped on a tree branch to catch his breath. As he did, he suddenly sensed a pungent aroma from behind him, and could feel something like a breeze on the back of his neck. Turning, he saw an enormous viper, thicker than his own waist, its mouth wide as it glared at him. From the liquid dripping from its enormous fangs, it was obvious that this snake was poisonous. "Well, hello," Yang Kai said, leaping out of the way of the striking snake to land on another nearby tree. From the way the vicious viper's ghastly pale scales glittered, it was clear they were impervious to all sorts of weapons. Furthermore, there was a trace of intelligence in the viper's eyes as it looked over at Yang Kai, opened its mouth, and spat out a burst of energy. The head-sized bullet of toxic energy shot toward Yang Kai as fast as an arrow, causing the air to hum around it. Shockingly, the viper was using a bizarre energy art that contained hypertoxic poison. This huge snake was an intelligent demonling, whose energy arts put it at roughly the 5th phase. Because devilings usually grew to enormous sizes, they would develop all sorts of unique energy arts. In terms of variety, their energy arts surpassed humans, and would usually contain memories from ancient ancestors. According to the legends, generations and generations in the past, the entire continent had been ruled by demons and devils, who kept humans as slaves. Those demons and devils had been so shockingly powerful that they could level mountains and fill in seas, and were supposedly the original inventors of energy arts. Eventually, saints and holy ones arose among humans, who then drove away the demons and devils and paved the way for the modern era. However, many of the wild beasts in the mountains could still trace their bloodlines back to primeval times and even had ancient memories of that era. Naturally, they could cultivate all sorts of energy arts. Apparently, this huge viper was a demonling who had some of those ancient memories. "You beast!" Yang Kai shouted, throwing his hand out in front of him, sending an energy wave out that completely destroyed the toxic energy. The giant snake's shock was clearly visible in its eyes, as it realized that this opponent actually surpassed its own abilities. It instantly coiled up and tried to make a break for the forest floor. Shockingly, it was quite intelligent, probably at the level of an 8 or 9-year-old child. And yet, even as it attempted to flee, a spear made of true energy stabbed directly through it, killing it and pinning it to the tree in the blink of an eye. Normally speaking, this snake's massive life force would ensure that, even if it were pinned to a tree, it wouldn't die. But the infernal deity's spear was too strong and instantly killed it. Fear didn't rely on poisons like the snake. Instead, it contained the boundless will of hell, a force that would destroy the souls of any living beings it struck, including the enormous viper. After a moment, the true energy that made up the infernal deity spear faded away, and the enormous viper dropped down onto the leafy ground. Yang Kai hopped down next to it. Drawing on his true energy, he summoned a sharp blade and then began to skin it. Moments later, he had the entire viper's pelt. Next, he dug into its innards until he found its gallbladder, which contained a faintly glimmering blue crystalline shape that resembled a gem. It was none other than a demon core. When demonlings reached the 5th phase of energy arts, they would naturally form a demon core, which would contain the quintessence of their cultivation base and energy arts. On the black market, demon cores could be exchanged for energy convergence pills, depending on the level of the core itself. That was another reason why people would often enter the mountains to hunt beasts. Selling demon cores could be very profitable. It was the same with the young clan's autumn hunt, which was a competition of sorts for the younger ones. Whoever got the most demon cores would be rewarded by the clan. The autumn hunt would usually bring in demon cores worth more than 1 million energy convergence pills, and also serve the function of providing important training for the young ones, as well as an assessment of their strength. As far as Yang Kai was concerned, getting some demon cores wouldn't be very difficult at all. The clan was bankrupt now, and therefore hunting demonlings would be a great way to help reverse that situation. Normally speaking, it would take a whole group of young clan members working very hard to take out a huge viper like this. But when Yang Kai went all out with the strength of the hell-crushing god mammoths, he was able to kill it in one hit. It almost seemed like it was a technique specifically designed to be the bane of demonlings. It also made Yang Kai capable of hunting demonlings even more quickly than experts in the Master of Energy level. After killing the viper and harvesting its demon core, he once again activated his defensive energy arts, and then blurred into motion into the trees. Thanks to his heightened sense of hearing, he was able to hear all sorts of noises around him in the forest. Suddenly, his nose twitched. Seems that there's a group of silverback devil wolves not too far off. Smells like blood too. Hopping down out of a tree, he sped toward a glade up ahead, until he caught sight of about a dozen wolves with sleek, silver fur, tearing some corpses into pieces. Unexpectedly, the corpses were human, and many of them had armor on. There were also weapons scattered in the area. Apparently, these were adventurers similar to Yang Kai, but who had fallen victim to the silverback devil wolves. These beasts were even more dangerous than the huge viper Yang Kai had just fought. They traveled in packs, had a rigid ranking system, and could move like the wind. Upon reaching maturity, all such wolves would develop energy arts of a terrifying nature, making them impervious to most weapons. Anyone who encountered a pack of silverback devil wolves was in for a tragedy. It was worse than offending an entire aristocratic clan. Furthermore, these wolves had nearly human-level intelligence. Supposedly, some of them actually descended from a famous demon sage of ancient times and still contained some of his memories in their blood. Almost as soon as Yang Kai arrived on the scene, all of the devil wolves stopped feasting on the corpses and turned to look at him. The silverback devil wolves weren't startled at all by the sudden presence of a human. One of them, a particularly large male, extended his paw in Yang Kai's direction and then beckoned at him as though saying, "Bring it on, you little punk." The scorn and bald-faced ridicule in his eyes were clear. It was a very strange scene. Not many people in the world could understand what it would be like to have a wolf look at you with scorn and tell you to attack it. This wolf had long since become fully sentient and was as intelligent as a human. The only thing it lacked was the ability to speak. As for Yang Kai, he remained completely calm in response to what was happening. After all, there were demonlings in the Black Horse Mountains who were even more intelligent than these wolves, and some of the old ones were at the Master of Energy level. He remembered his father telling him a story back when he was young, about how the clan had once been chasing a golden rhino in their hunt in the Black Horse Mountains, and ended up going deeper into the forest than they expected. That was when they suddenly ran into a powerful divine ape whose cultivation base was well into the Master of Energy level. The ape even managed to injure one of the chief elders in the resulting fray. Thankfully, the creature wasn't murderous in nature, otherwise the entire Yang clan might have suffered a fatal blow. "You beasts!" Yang Kai suddenly shouted. As would be expected, the leader of the devil wolf pack understood and was enraged. He threw his head back and roared, then swiped his paw out, causing a ball of intensely hot energy to appear. As it flew through the air, it swelled in size, transforming into a wind weapon. The power of gale force winds. Yang Kai instantly realized that the devil wolf cultivated a formidable energy art, and was in the 6th phase, enabling it to create weapons from energy. More weapons appeared in the air. Axes, sabers, swords, hooks, spears, tridents. Most people who faced an array of weapons like this would be transformed into corpses. In the deep forest, One could kill an enemy without anyone ever knowing. Therefore, Yang Kai wasn't worried about the possibility of his secrets being revealed, and had no qualms about using his strength of the hell-crushing god mammoths. Looking at the incoming wind weapons, he coldly chuckled, then shoved his hand out, causing a divine shield to shoot out in front of him, completely crushing all of the weapons. Then, the energy continued onward, slamming into the wolves, causing them to wail in fear and pain and prostrate themselves on the ground. Apparently, the hell-crushing power of a god mammoth was particularly effective in dominating wild demons and devils. Bam! In a blur of motion, Yang Kai jumped toward the leader of the pack and struck him with his right hand. The wolf instantly flew off to the side and slammed into a tree, dissolving into a mass of blood and gore. The other silverback devil wolves were instantly thrown into chaos, but had no time to react before a hail of fist strikes instantly killed them. Normally speaking, wolves had very strong heads and backs and needed to be struck in the belly to do any damage. But Yang Kai didn't need to worry about that. After all, one of the stances of his invincible king's fist technique was no stronghold too powerful. It only took about 5 breaths of time before all of the devil wolves were transformed into corpses. The head of each wolf, upon being broken open, revealed a thumb-sized silver pellet, which was none other than a demon core pulsing with true energy. As of this moment, Yang Kai now had 13 demon cores. Silverback devil wolves were rather unique, and on the black market, their demon cores were considered hard currency. Top experts could use them to forge divine weapons, or embed them in suits of armor. Some people would even harvest the true energy from inside of them. Of course, before absorbing the true energy from the demon cores, they would have to be purified. By skipping that step, one would run the serious risk of experiencing cultivation deviation. What a pity. Their pelts are pretty valuable, but I don't have any way to transport them. It really was a pity. Silverback devil wolf pelts could be sold for at least 100 or so energy convergence pills. In addition to the wolf corpses, there were also the human corpses that the wolves had been feeding on. There were 4, all of them mangled nearly to the point of being unrecognizable. However, it was still possible to tell that 3 were male and 1 was female, all of them young. Presumably, these were young lords and a lady from some rich and powerful clan, sent here on training. After checking the corpses, Yang Kai found some weapons and armor, as well as a bag containing a few dozen demon cores. Clearly, this group had successfully hunted down quite a few demonlings before meeting their end. They also had some bannotes on them. Yang Kai took all of the demon cores, as well as the bannotes, which were worth about 10,000 energy convergence pills altogether. Unfortunately, all of the actual energy convergence pills they had possessed had been consumed by the devil wolves. Demonlings couldn't concoct medicinal pills. They could only practice instinctual cultivation. As such, it was easy to imagine how much they coveted energy convergence pills. I suppose I should give you a proper burial, Yang Kai murmured. With that, he carved out a pit, arranged the 4 corpses inside, and then buried them. Having accomplished these things, he stood, and then shot into motion again, his feet blurring as he raced through the trees. After traveling some distance, he found a good spot to sit down cross-legged and do a bit of cultivation. Adjusting his energy arts, he did what was necessary to keep himself in top condition. Technically, he was still on the edges of the Black Corpse Mountains. In their depths, danger increased. Demonlings like the silverback devil wolves were more common there, and there were also things like the 8th phase golden rhinos, which were even more powerful. Golden rhinos were strange creatures, and their demon cores were particularly valuable, selling for hundreds of thousands of energy convergence pills. As Yang Kai rested, he contemplated how he was going about his cultivation, and came to a conclusion. This type of killing isn't enough to draw out my potential. It is not helping me absorb the lightning mammoth. It seems I need to put myself in greater danger. The more dangerous the situation, the faster I'll get to the 7th phase. With that, he headed deeper into the mountains, hoping to encounter larger groups of demonlings, and thus advance more quickly toward his breakthrough. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. Throughout that time, Yang Kai worked his way deeper and deeper into the Black Corpse Mountains. In fact, he even reached areas that the Yang clan had never traveled to during their hunts. He encountered countless groups of demonlings. Blood boars, giant bees, flying tigers, vampire bats, shadow mastiffs, devil, hunting spiders, man-eating ants and more. Many of them were equivalent to humans in the 7th phase of energy arts, and yet Yang Kai killed them all. On a few occasions, he found himself in great danger. For example, the time he fought a massive colony of man-eating ants, each of which was the size of a human fist. They were fierce to the extreme, and would kill and eat anything in their path. Thankfully, Yang Kai was strong enough to fight through them and escape with his life. He remained on guard at all times, and ate energy convergence pills when he got hungry. When he was thirsty, he would drink spring water, and would sleep with one eye open, ready to fight for his life at a moment's notice. Thankfully, his strength of the hell-crushing god mammoths was particularly effective in this situation. The lightning mammoth continued to deliver him the quintessence of its life force, enabling him to push far past normal human limits. On some occasions when his energy arts reached the limit, power would suddenly erupt within him, like floodwaters breaking through a dam, and he would experience profound transformations. Soon the signs of an imminent breakthrough grew more apparent. One day, rain began to fall, rapidly turning into a downpour that soaked everything in the area. The intense heat vanished, to be replaced by water, thunder, and lightning. Silver snakes danced in the sky, lightning that would occasionally smash into the mountains below. Yang Kai was seated cross-legged on a tree, circulating his energy in a way that caused the falling rain to be flung off to the side, and keeping himself completely dry. The sound of the thunder was like music to his ears, and as his thoughts roamed, he slowly became one with creation. It was as though he had fused with the lightning, with the thunder, and with the wind. As the lightning crashed, it soon became possible to see sparks of electricity entering him, fusing with the membrane under his skin and inciting his life force. Ever since he had been struck by lightning, he had found that practicing cultivation in stormy weather was particularly enjoyable. Gradually, electricity reached his forehead and the golden imp that resided there. Suddenly, Yang Kai realized that the golden imp was absorbing the lightning, making him seem almost alive. Senior? Senior. Yet again he tried to communicate with the imp, but was ignored. Suddenly, the lightning above ceased and the golden imp went completely still. In fact, he almost couldn't sense its existence. After a bit of time passed, the storm continued, making the forest a world of water. Water pooled into lakes and dripped off of the trees, to the point where Yang Kai could see fish everywhere, eating the insects in the area. There were also devillings crouching and hiding, concealing themselves from the fury of nature. As Yang Kai waited for the rain to stop, he continued with his cultivation. In his left hand was a demon core about the size of a longan fruit, which came from a seventh-phase devil hunting spider that he had killed the night before. Devil hunting spiders were chaotic, primeval creatures who naturally developed energy arts as they grew larger. Eventually, they would become big enough to eat humans or shoot silk up into the air to snag massive flying birds. Normally speaking, the most elite young members of the rich and powerful clans would have to team up to handle a devil hunting spider. Even top experts in the 8th phase, like Yangshi, would have trouble dealing with one. After all, their silk was particularly powerful. But when that devil hunting spider was ambushed by Yang Kai, his infernal deity spear ensured that it didn't even know what hit it. After he got back to the clan, he would be able to sell its demon core on the black market for at least 300,000 energy convergence pills. It's too bad I haven't found any demonlings in the 8th phase. They're the only ones that are worth 1,000,000 energy convergence pills. Sighing, Yang Kai put away the devil hunting spider core. The more demonlings I fight, the more I can help my clan. And that's not even mentioning the training on my side. My cultivation base is already in the energy weapon level, high enough that I don't need to worry about 7th phase experts. Only 8th phase opponents would cause me problems. That having been said, if I ran into a big group of 8th phase demonlings, I might end up dead. At the moment, he wasn't afraid of fighting demonlings one-on-one. But big groups of them? That was a different story. For example, the devil hunting spider he had fought was in the 7th phase, and he had been fine. But if he had been facing 17 or 18 at a time, he would have had no other option than to turn and run. After all, devil hunting spiders could shoot their silk high into the air and even pull mighty eagles to the ground. No use worrying about it. I'll just head deeper into the mountains. If I can find an 8th phase demonling worth 1,000,000, it would relieve a lot of the pressure on eldest brother and second brother as they tried to restore the bloodline's assets. Gritting his teeth, he headed further into the forest. Meanwhile, it continued to rain and occasional muffled booms of thunder rang out, shaking the mountains. Occasionally, lightning would strike portions of the mountains, unleashing flash floods. At this point, Yang Kai was far off the beaten path in the Black Corpse Mountains. Only experts in the Master of Energy level would ever dare to venture this deep. Roar! Suddenly, the sound of some enormous beast echoed out from the direction of a nearby flooded area. What's that? Sounds pretty strong. The sound waves caused by the roar left Yang Kai's ears ringing. Leaping into motion, he drew on his energy arts, flying 100 paces in a single motion. Being careful to avoid the rushing floodwaters, he proceeded along until he reached a cliff with a huge waterfall. The sound of the water crashing onto the rocks below was like the marching of a huge army of horses and men. Surprisingly, Yang Kai immediately caught sight of a demonling at the bottom of the waterfall, seemingly bathing. In truth, the creature was practicing martial arts forms, and it was the source of the roar he had heard moments ago. It was an enormous ape, as tall as 3 humans put together, with white fur and green eyes. It looked almost like some sort of evil ghost, standing there on a boulder beneath the waterfall, striking out, sending water spraying everywhere with each blow. Considering that the waterfall was 300 meters tall, it could only be imagined how powerful the force of the falling water was at the bottom. It was probably enough to destroy low-lying mountains, and yet, the energy which flew out of the palms of this white-furred ape was more than a match for it. Roar! Almost as soon as Yang Kai caught sight of the beast, it twitched as though it had sensed something. Then it looked over its shoulder, its eyes locking down directly onto Yang Kai's hiding place. It was almost as though nothing could possibly hide from it. Instantly, Yang Kai felt some mysterious force locking down onto his soul, Even if he fled for 1,000 kilometers, he knew that he wouldn't be able to shake this white ape. 1,000 kilometers soul locking? Shit. This white ape is no joke. His energy arts and cultivation base have reached the point of perfection. In terms of his general level, he's probably beyond father, and even further beyond him in energy arts. I'm definitely not a match for him. I wonder if he's in the master of energy level? Not willing to test out his theory, he turned to leave. He knew that he could not handle this creature, and in fact, not even his own father could do so. An opponent with 1,000 kilometer soul locking was just too powerful. It was a technique that could be used only after one's energy arts reached the pinnacle, and made one extremely sensitive to energy fluctuations, to the point where one could lock one's senses onto an enemy and track them for hundreds upon hundreds of kilometers. Only experts in the 9th phase, or possibly the peak of the 8th phase, could use such an ability, and that level was far beyond Yang Kai. Maybe if he was already in the 7th phase he might have taken the risk, but in the 6th phase he was absolutely certain that he would end up dead. Even more relevant was that this wasn't a human. It was a massive ape, so enormous that his true energy was probably 3 or 4 times as abundant as that of an average expert of the same level. Unfortunately, although Yang Kai wanted to leave, the ape didn't seem inclined to let him. With a roar, the beast struck out with his palm, sending a stream of energy into the waters of the lake around him. Instantly, the water and energy turned into a twisting dragon that lunged toward Yang Kai, mouth gaping. In the shortest of moments, it was right on top of Yang Kai, who was 3,000 meters away. Not good. Yang Kai immediately burst into motion like a stone flung by a catapult. An instant later, the water dragon's mouth snapped down onto the tree he had been standing on, shattering it into splinters. Yang Kai could tell that if that mouth had hit him, it would have ripped him to shreds. One attack went 3,000 paces, he thought, shaken. Incredible energy arts. The so-called 100 paces divine fist got its name, because it was an ability used to project destructive energy to a distance of 100 paces. However, after 100 paces, the true energy would simply fade away. Based on Yang Kai's current energy arts and cultivation base, he could actually strike things 500 paces away, which was farther than most bows could shoot. However, 3,000 paces was simply too enormous of a distance to even contemplate. This white ape was definitely that far away, and yet had attacked with energy arts in terrifying fashion. The white ape was clearly shocked that Yang Kai managed to dodge his blow. However, all he did was smile viciously, revealing a host of ghastly fangs. At the same time, the white fur on his face floated about, untouched by the water. Then, he launched himself into the air, flying out of the waterfall, a pair of golden wings appearing on his back that made him look like a huge rock. These wings were far larger than the wings of the white crane, and clearly more powerful. Rock energy arts? Almost before Yang Kai could even react, the white ape was descending on him, his fists lashing out to unleash shocking levels of energy. Suddenly, the air around Yang Kai swirled into a vortex, locking him into place as surely as fetters, making him like a tiny rowboat in the face of a massive, inescapable tidal wave. Death and destruction were about to hit him head on. Worse, he knew that his own energy arts were like nothing compared to the ape's. In fact, if this ape appeared back in Yan Haven, only City Magistrate Yan Gifeng would be his match. Die! Yang Kai shouted, his battle spirit surging. He knew that the only option he had right now was to put everything on the line and fight. Muscles rippling, he drew on the strength of the hell-crushing god mammoths, causing an aura like that of a devilish god to erupt out, something so monstrous it would strike fear into the hearts of even demons and ghosts. His infernal deity spear materialized in his hand, which he stabbed directly toward the white ape's throat. The white ape was visibly shocked. He could clearly sense the destructive nature of the infernal deity spear, which contained true energy that immediately weighed down on his soul. Instantly, a flood of water erupted from his hand, forming into an enormous cudgel which he thrust out toward the infernal deity spear. When the two weapons collided, the force shoved Yang Kai backward and dispelled his spear. At the same time, the power of the enormous cudgel entered his meridians and pierced into his sea of energy, seriously injuring him and causing cracking sounds to echo out inside of his body. Lightning mammoth, he shouted in his mind. Instantly, the power of the lightning mammoth swept through him, repairing the damage to his meridians. Because of the incredible pressure he was under, it was in that very moment that, at long last, the fourth particle within him awoke, yet again advancing his strength of the hell-crushing god mammoths. In the blink of an eye, his limbs and bones all pulsed with the blessing of the power of 4 ancient mega mammoths. Spear, he shouted. Yet again the infernal deity spear appeared. Simultaneously, his sea of energy began to churn as hell vortexes sprang into being to power the spear. Without any hesitation, he thrust the spear out, causing it to blur with devilish speed toward the white ape's chest. Never could the white ape have guessed that his opponent would achieve a break through right in the middle of their fight and experience a massive increase in his energy arts. And yet, he still had no intentions of letting Yang Kai go. Yang Kai was too valuable to him. The energy arts the ape cultivated required that he absorb the true energy of people just like this. and his understanding of cultivation far surpassed that of ordinary humans. His floodwater cudgel suddenly twisted like storm winds, once again slamming into the infernal deity spear. The attack was blocked, and yet, an aura like that of devils from hell still poured into the white ape's soul, destabilizing his true energy. Yang Kai seized the opportunity to attack again, summoning a dozen infernal deity spears to create an array that he sent shooting toward the white ape. Simultaneously, he flitted into the air like a bird, unleashing 6 moves from the invincible king's fist, each of them targeting a vital area on the huge ape's body. Roar! Apparently, this ape had never experienced humiliation like this. Snarling ferociously, he lifted his cudgel and unleashed his energy arts, summoning an endless mass of floodwaters to create something like a wall, formed of numerous smaller layers. The infernal deity spears pierced into the wall, destroying one layer after another, and causing the entire wall to tremble. But it was a wall that combined both hard and soft elements, and thus, despite the power of the spears, they eventually faded away, having failed to destroy it. Mountain! The ape howled, energy surging. It sent masses of floodwaters swirling into the air to form a mountain that then shot toward Yang Kai. It was a mountain so enormous that Yang Kai had no hope of dodging out of the way of the attack. Fine, Yang Kai said. Let's see what else you can do. Unfazed, he threw his hands wide, drawing on the strength of the hell-crushing god mammoths, throwing his palms out to meet the incoming mountain.